Chapter 552. Celestial I Dao Skill. 1 Sword Slays God. Celestial Spirit God. Middle stage of Hengtian Golden Immortal Realm 0/0/0. Guan looked at the lifespan detection prompt before him, feeling puzzled. The fact that information could be detected indicated that this celestial spirit god was indeed in real flesh. A situation where all values were 0 made him think of the divine exotic ghost king. Was this so-called immortality dependent on sacrificing one's own lifespan to some power? Who are you? The celestial spirit god's voice echoed in the fragmented dark space, his posture poised with the axe raised. Guan stood before him, gazing calmly, and said, "As an immortal god, yet you seek to annihilate all beings in the great world. I really want to know, is this your own principle of action, or the will of the celestial court?" In his past life, while he was still on Earth City, he had heard of the myths of the celestial court. With both positive and negative aspects, the status of the celestial court in mythology was undeniably recognized by the Wuxia people. This life, whenever he heard of the celestial court, his feelings were complex, joyful yet anxious. He was joyful that the name of the celestial court could reach the earth where he came from. Was there hope for him to return? Anxious because, if the celestial court truly existed, would his writings of Journey to the West and the Investiture of the Gods alarm the celestial court? These emotions had been smoothed out as time passed. The celestial spirit god looked at Guan and asked, "Is it important?" "Very important." The answer made the celestial spirit god fall silent for a moment. The celestial spirit god solemnly said, "The heavenly Tao has its celestial rules, celestial gods have their own choices." This response slightly changed Guan's view of him. By this point, that the celestial spirit god could maintain the image of the celestial court was enough to prove his loyalty to it. And it also indicated that his attitude towards the celestial spirit great world stemmed from personal feelings. A force more powerful than the celestial spirit god erupted, repelling him, and the collapsing dark space shattered as well, transporting them back into the cosmos. Tao protecting divine essence. The powerful divine power dispersed the celestial Tao divine light surrounding the celestial spirit god, revealing his true form. He was dressed in heavy silver armor, his helmet adorned with a silver dragon, his breastplate resembled a qilin, shoulder pads with phoenixes spreading their wings, and a red belt emanating pieces of world power. In his hand, the celestial Tao divine axe contained vast heavenly power, blazing and imposing. An astonished expression appeared on the stern face of the celestial spirit god. Just one move, and he felt that the other's cultivation level was not weaker than his own. With such Tao practice, why intervene in the calamity of the great world? The celestial spirit god stared intently at Guan and asked in a deep voice. He could feel boundless way of cause and effect enveloping the cosmos, and there was no escape for him. Even the connection to the heavenly Tao was severed. The opponent was exceedingly adept in the way of cause and effect. Guan raised his right hand, the celestial star sword appeared in his grasp, and the blade wrapped itself in dazzling sword light, intensely bright. And Hao looked at Guan holding the sword, his emotions surging, feeling as if his blood was boiling, his face turning bright red. The celestial spirit immortal venerable looked at Guan with a complex look, especially noticing in Hao's expression, and felt even more mixed emotions. At this moment, the beings within the celestial spirit great world could not see the confrontation outside. They could only see the cosmic starry sky, and the whole world silenced because of it. The beings were very nervous, unclear about what was to come. On a dilapidated island, Leia lay on the cliff, struggling to look up. The divine exotic immortal spirit appeared on his shoulder, excitedly looking towards the universe. Leia could feel its excitement and immediately guessed the reason. His expression turned complex, but it was as though a burden had been lifted from his heart. "Indeed, it still depends on you. You are the true protector of this world unparalleled." Leia gazed at the cosmic starry sky, thinking thus, his eyes gradually filled with admiration. Just as this thought occurred, a sword light burst through the cosmic starry sky, illuminating the heavens and earth, making Leia instinctively close his eyes. In the cosmic void, the celestial spirit god froze in place, the darkness behind him cleaved in two by a streak of sword light, still gripping the celestial Tao divine axe, trembling all over. He fixated on Guan ahead, while Guan maintained the sword-swinging posture. The body of the celestial spirit god developed cracks, divine blood seeping out, his condition greatly resembling in Hao's. "So fast." The celestial spirit immortal venerable stared at Guan, his expression grave. He hadn't seen clearly how Guan had swung his sword, and Hao's sense of it wasn't as profound, but he could tell that his master had suppressed the celestial spirit god's momentum, which excited him. The celestial spirit god's gaze sharpened, suddenly leaping up, nearly instantly. He burst forth with an even stronger aura, a vast sea of light appearing above him in the universe, and the celestial spirit god plunged into it, vanishing from sight. Soon after, within the light sea, a massive eye appeared. As this colossal eye opened, eyes of all sizes appeared from every direction in the universe, densely surrounding Guan and the two others, all these eyes fixated on them. Far away, the immortal seeker witnessed this scene, his expression changing once again. Celestial Eye Dao skill, he actually mastered such a great divine power. The immortal seeker was no longer startled for the first time by the celestial spirit god. He hadn't expected that he was still underestimating the celestial spirit god. His gaze unintentionally switched to Guan. For some reason, he could not see Guan's true face, indicating that the other party was using some powerful method to isolate his senses. However, looking at Guan's figure, it felt familiar, as if he had met him before. But no matter how much he thought, he just couldn't remember. He didn't think he had a poor memory. Rather, the other had employed the power of cause and effect. The celestial spirit god had astonished him, and this suddenly appearing mysterious existence also filled him with curiosity and awe. All these years in the Great Thousand World, you are the first one to force me to exert my full strength. Those who defy the heavenly Tao should be reduced to ashes and smoke. The voice of the celestial spirit god echoed, authoritative and domineering. In an instant, countless celestial eyes burst open in the starry sky, their pupils emanating multicolored lights. Almost instantly, Guan's mana enveloped celestial spirit immortal venerable, and Hao, and the celestial spirit great world below. The universe began to twist violently. Distant meteors ignited into towering flames, while others were frozen solid. The celestial Eye Dao skill can invoke the power of the heavenly Tao, allowing the 3,000 great Tao to aid him. This skill could destroy the Great Thousand World. The face of the celestial spirit immortal venerable was solemn as he spoke. And Hao saw streams of nebulous starry seas appear in the distance, ravaging the cosmic void. Everything before him seemed chaotic and even made him feel dizzy. An invisible force was invading him, an eerie sensation he had never experienced before. The celestial spirit immortal venerable looked at Guan and said, "Once the celestial Eye Dao skill is employed, you are essentially making enemies with the 3,000 great Tao. You cannot." He hadn't finished speaking when Guan suddenly swung his sword, and a silver-blue sword shadow appeared out of nowhere, sweeping across the dazzling illusionary universe. In front of this sword shadow, meteors, heaven and earth, star clouds, and sun and moon all seemed insignificant. With one slash, thousands of celestial eyes were completely extinguished. Above, the sea of celestial light was also slashed away, revealing the figure of the celestial spirit god, his silver armor shattered, exposing his bloody and mangled body, his helmet thrown aside, his black hair splayed out. The celestial spirit god's eyes widened, incredulously looking at Guan suddenly appeared before him, his left hand quickly grasping the celestial spirit god's long hair, then raising his sword to slash. The sword light shone across the universe, illuminating thousands of great worlds and countless little worlds. Celestial spirit immortal venerable, and Hao, immortal seeker, and the observing great power cultivators from afar all blinked their eyes, and when they opened them again, the omnipresent celestial Tao pressure enveloping the universe began to dissipate. They all looked in the same direction and saw a blurred figure floating in the void, one hand wielding a sword, the other holding the decapitated head of the celestial spirit god. Behind that figure still lingered the magnificent blue sword shadow, scattered deep into the universe. The divine blood of the celestial spirit god spilled down, scorching the space, causing meteors to be penetrated by the droplets, much of the divine blood falling into the celestial spirit great world, vanishing from the mortal world. The celestial spirit immortal venerable watched, dumbfounded. And Hao too was shocked. He knew his master was strong, but the celestial spirit god had already demonstrated an invincible demeanor, and such a powerful being had no chance against his master. Even more hopeless than the celestial spirit immortal venerable facing the celestial spirit god. At that moment, the decapitated head of the celestial spirit god that Guan held in his hand still had its eyes open, gazing up at Guan, filled with fear. "You! It's impossible. Who are you really?" The celestial spirit god asked in a trembling voice, unable to accept that his celestial eye Dao skill had been annihilated by a single sword strike. Even an image came to his mind. Xianxia the Oval Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. That person, whose sword Dao talent had left a deep impression, if allowed to grow, could he reach the level of the man before him? Guan looked down at him expressionlessly, his right hand performing the universe in hand divine power, drawing the head into his palm, disappearing from sight. After doing all this, Guan turned around, looking at the universe. His eternal infinite divine sword had broken the celestial eye Dao skill, yet the universe was still collapsing. This scene seemed to be moving towards the future he had predicted before. Although he was powerful, he could not manipulate the Dao rules of the Great Thousand World. Because this Great Thousand World did not belong to him. Guan could feel that the reason for the universe's collapse was not just the celestial eye Dao skill, but other factors as well. His gaze looked far towards the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable. The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable was also looking back at him, his face calm like a deep lake. And Hao also snapped out of his excitement, realizing the universe was collapsing, the atmosphere everywhere dense with danger and tension. Could it be? And Hao seemed to think of something, his expression turning unsightly. The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable turned his head towards him and calmly said, "Previously, I extracted all the heaven and earth's power, already causing this Great Thousand World to lose its stable Dao order. Coupled with the disruption of the celestial eye Dao skill, this Great Thousand World is on the verge of annihilation, ceasing to exist." Upon hearing this, and Hao, surprisingly unalarmed, looked at the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable and asked, "What should we do then? Don't you have the slightest pity for all living beings?" The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable turned his head, looking far off at the figure of Guan, and said, "Previously, indeed I had none. However, when I saw him just now protecting the creatures of various heavens and earths from the oppression of the celestial eye Dao skill, I suddenly felt that I really should do something. It's also a good opportunity for me to repay him for his care and instruction towards you." As his words fell, the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable burst into a bright light. His celestial Dao golden core and heaven and earth Dao fruit flew out from his chest, hovering over his shoulders. "I will let this Great Thousand World be reborn in a new way, wash away the past cause and effect, allowing Celestial Court to not pursue the death of the celestial spirit god, so he can stay here at ease." Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 553. Reshaping the Great Thousand World. Hearing the words of Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable, and Hao's expression darkened. He realized what the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable intended to do, and he could neither agree with it nor stop it. The Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable wanted to sacrifice himself to save all living beings. As a son, and Hao could not agree, yet he could not disregard the life and death of all beings to stop him either. The Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable took a deep look at Guan. The celestial Dao golden core on his shoulder burst forth with golden light, and the heaven and earth Dao fruit rose up, quickly blossoming into expanding spiritual energy that symbolized vigorous life force. And Hao was baptized by the celestial Dao spiritual qi, and his wounds recovered rapidly. He clenched his fists tightly, gritting his teeth as he watched the gradually dissipating figure of the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable. Guan watched this scene from afar, feeling somewhat conflicted. He guessed that the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable had noticed him, which made him uneasy. However, due to the relationship between the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable and Hao, he could not make a move against the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable. Now that the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable had chosen to sacrifice himself to protect the beings of great heaven and earth, it was also a good thing for Guan. "I was born in the celestial spirit great world and owe you a debt of gratitude. If there is a chance in the future, I will assist you in being reborn." That's what Guan thought to himself. He didn't dwell on it any longer but chose to carefully sense the creation of heaven and earth. He too could create a Great Thousand World, but even if he did, he could not take a lifespan from his own Great Thousand World, so he did not do so. Taking a lifespan from within his own Great Thousand World would be like devouring his own mana, which would not increase his mana. However, even without doing so, he could comprehend the creation of the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable, thereby enhancing his understanding of the Tao. This was a rare opportunity. An opportunity brought by the self-sacrifice of an innate golden immortal. As the spiritual energy of nature spread, the twisted space of the universe gradually calmed down. The beings of the celestial spirit great world, being the first to be swept by the nature's spiritual energy, recovered their chi power. The celestial vault also quickly took shape, replacing the view of the cosmic starry sky. Everything was returning to normal. At that moment, the immortal seeker unexpectedly flew towards Guan. If it weren't for their past acquaintance, Guan wouldn't have let him approach. With the mystery of the celestial dark purple micro Saint Dao body, even when the immortal seeker arrived in front of Guan, he still couldn't see his true form. Looking at the blurred image of Guan, the immortal seeker took a deep breath and said, "Fellow Taoist, by slaying the celestial spirit god, you will bring immense troubles upon yourself. Each immortal god holds a position in the celestial Tao. Once they fall, the celestial court must be aware. Even if you use cause and effect to isolate this great thousand world, as long as the celestial court wants to investigate, finding you is only a matter of time. Among the celestial court, there are countless beings more powerful than the celestial spirit god. To the immortal gods of the celestial court, nothing is more important than its majesty." Guan looked down at the immortal seeker and asked, "So, what are you trying to say?" The immortal seeker replied, "If fellow Taoist can secure a celestial Tao immortal position before the celestial court becomes aware, with your Tao practice, even if you're punished, the loss won't be significant." Celestial Tao immortal positions are easy to come by? I must be honest, I have an opportunity for a celestial Tao immortal position in my possession. That's not necessary. You may leave now. Your presence is a threat to me and to this great thousand world. Guan's response elicited a wry smile from the immortal seeker, who immediately bowed and took his leave. Before going far, his soul dispersed. The immortal seeker's method of fleeing this realm was self-demise. Guan wasn't much affected. He turned his gaze toward Anhao. Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable was remaking the Tao rules of the great world, harboring a personal interest in bestowing his Tao inheritance upon Anhao. Even though it couldn't make Anhao's cultivation level soar directly, it could help Anhao cultivate better. Guan didn't interfere, nor did he fear any tricks from the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable, because he could sense that the causality of the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable was dissipating, not an act. However, Guan frowned lightly, his gaze shifting to the depths of the universe. As the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable was reconstructing the rules of the Great Thousand World, Celestial Tao Destiny appeared out of thin air along with the Tao. This made Guan very curious about the connection between the Heavenly Tao and the Great Tao. He had always thought that the Heavenly Tao was weaker than the Great Tao, or that the Heavenly Tao was born based on the Great Tao. Now it seemed that this Heavenly Tao was as dominant as the Great Tao. The figure of the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable completely faded away, and Anhao had fully recovered from his injuries. Anhao looked around, his eyebrows slightly furrowed. He, too, felt the destiny of the Heavenly Tao. Could it be that all of this was not the doing of the Celestial Spirit God, and he only chose to act at this juncture? Anhao muttered to himself. His gaze then fell upon Guan. Guan felt his gaze and turned to look. Their eyes met, and Guan understood what was in Anhao's eyes. Anhao couldn't make out Guan's expression, but being watched by Guan made him feel at peace, and a smile appeared on his face. Wasn't this the moment he had been looking forward to? You'd better think it through. The beings you save will eventually die, and the Great Thousand World will return to normal in time. Guan's voice reached Anhao's ears. Anhao smiled and retorted, "Master, how many of the beings you saved are still alive? They will eventually die, and you still took action, didn't you?" Guan asked, "Are you willing to let go of an Xian? And your wife, your children, can you truly cut all ties? Didn't you make arrangements for them? The only person I'm sorry to is you. I've lived for nearly 10,000 years and never repaid you, only caused you worries." Anhao spoke to Guan with a look of guilt. Guan really wanted to say that it was actually quite a simple task and no trouble at all, but looking at Anhao's expression, he knew that nothing he said would change Anhao's choice. Now, Guan was strong, but not strong enough, at least not enough to free the Great Thousand World from the Heavenly Tao, at least not enough to develop the world he lived in according to his wishes. However, Guan was quite relieved to see Anhao take on such responsibility. He couldn't change such an outcome, but he could leave Anhao a way out. Guan turned and disappeared into the void. More and more divine senses swept across, able to lock onto Anhao, yet not daring to come close. The previous battle made them shudder. Even though they hadn't seen clearly what had happened, the shadow of the eternal infinite divine sword and the grand and spectacular celestial Ai Dao skill still gave them chills. Even Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal and profound Yuan Free Immortal would feel like they could be annihilated at any moment when facing the recent battle. And Hao looked toward the celestial spirit great world, his gaze filled with affection, and slowly raised his arms, murmuring, "Young Immortal Emperor, I will carry out the task you left unfinished." Inside the Taoist field of the beginningless, an Xian, celestial demon child, Chen Chuan, and others had not been stripped of their mana and qi power by the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable. They were always discussing the battle situation. Guan appeared out of nowhere beside an Xian. As he appeared, the crowd immediately gathered around. "Master, did you make a move? Was that sword intent just now the eternal infinite divine sword? Master, what's the situation in outer heaven now? And Hao and Zhu Shi, who won and who lost? Who was the person who spoke earlier? They sounded so arrogant. I wonder how high their cultivation level is." Everyone kept asking, curious and excited. With the protection of the Taoist field of the beginningless, they hadn't truly felt the oppression from the outside world. Guan looked toward the celestial vault. "From now on, you will never see those two again." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned, their excitement immediately extinguished, and they subconsciously looked at an Xian. They weren't familiar with Zhu Shi. They only knew that an Xian and an Hao were as close as siblings. An Xian too was stunned. She didn't have a breakdown of emotions, but looked at Guan and asked, "Master, have you seen him already?" "Yes." "Then let it be." An Xian was very calm, and Guan did not say more. He turned to the others. "A new era is coming. The universe will become infinitely vast. From now on, you will no longer live in the great heaven and earth, but in the great thousand world." The great thousand world. Everyone was astounded. They believed Guan's words, and so they began to fantasize about the vastness of the great thousand world. And Xianxia was also somewhat dazed. Although he had cut off the cause and effect with an Hao, he had always hoped to meet an Hao. Would he really never be able to meet him from now on? SEA the Novel Fire, NE*T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. "Look!" Celestial Scion suddenly pointed at the sky, exclaiming loudly. Everyone turned their heads to look and saw a sun appearing in the sky that was growing rapidly larger. Celestial Demon Child was about to ask Guan when suddenly, an unimaginable shockwave descended from the sky, leaving everyone in a bewildered state. The scene seemed to freeze, everyone was fixed in place, only Guan could still move. Guan looked up and could see in Hao's figure, which was fading away. And Hao had chosen the same path as his father, the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable. The Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable had chosen to sacrifice himself to reshape the Tao rules of the Great Thousand World, and Hao had chosen to sacrifice himself to reassemble the shattered Great Thousand World. And Hao was able to do this because he had received the Tao of the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable. He had become the controller of the Great Thousand World. In order for all living beings to quickly survive the calamities set by the heavenly Tao, he chose to sacrifice himself. In this catastrophe, Zhu Shi was sent out of the universe by Immortal Seeker. The Celestial Spirit God was captured, and both the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable and Hao fell one after another. At first glance, it seemed there were no victors. Guan sighed at the capriciousness of fate, but he was also looking forward to the brand new Great Thousand World. Anyway, this calamity was just a node in his life. He needed to keep striving to become stronger, intuition telling him that one day he would no longer be able to conceal himself, and he would need to directly face the might of the celestial court. When that day comes, whether he would compromise and ascend to immortality or make other plans would depend on how high his cultivation level was. Guan retracted his gaze and walked toward his own pavilion. As for the immobilized crowd, they wouldn't have any issues. Guan deliberately allowed Hao's power to enter the dojo, letting them rapidly get through the upcoming drastic changes of heaven and earth like all living beings. When they awoke, they would only think they had a dream. Guan suddenly looked in one direction, a trace of surprise in his voice. Everything in the universe was still under Hao's power, yet Xianxia was unaffected, still fervently drawing in her house. Guan felt a special aura from Xianxia, one that he couldn't deduce. This made him even more curious. What kind of great Tao had Xianxia stepped into? As Guan was pondering, a powerful light that drained all colors from everything descended from the sky, enveloping his figure and all of existence. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 554 Nine Heavens Cyan Bird. Tai Ching golden immortal sunlight was brilliant, filtering through the gaps in the leaves and leaving patches of light across the grass in the forest. An Xian sat on a rock beside a stream, delivering a sermon to a group of boys and girls. Her voice was mesmerizing, so much so that even the birds perched on the trees cocked their heads to listen attentively. She had been speaking for half a day now, her patience greater than before, as a gentle smile constantly graced her face. Seeing the Chen sect disciples enraptured by her Taoist teachings, an Xian turned her head to look around but couldn't find Guan. However, she believed her master was still there. Indeed he was. 10 yards away, on an old tree, Guan was lying on a branch, hesitating as he stared at his attribute list. Name: Guan. Lifespan: 9,555/89,904,572,611. Physique: primordial infinite body. Cultivation level: heaven balancing golden immortal realm perfection. 800 years had passed since the Great Thousand Worlds restructuring, a cataclysmic process. But under and how and the celestial spirit immortal venerable's protection, all beings were unaffected, feeling only as if they had sunk into a profound dream. Upon awakening from the dream, every major sect realized that the world had become boundlessly vast, so much so that even beings above the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, who flew towards outer heaven, were utterly astounded by the current world. The endless expanse of the world, a thicker celestial Tao light layer, and the universe had become even more dim. And how had gathered all the worlds within the cosmos to create the entirely new celestial spirit great world. The celestial spirit great world was more than 10,000 times larger than the celestial spirit great world. In the previous 10 millennia, not only the celestial spirit great world had faced calamities of the heavenly Tao, but other great worlds experienced the same. Without the protection of the supporting Tao sword venerable, many had long been eradicated of all life. Thus, after the restructuring of the celestial spirit great world, the heavens and the earth became vast yet desolate. With the world so infinitely vast and the number of living beings not even close to the new world's capacity, the calamities of the heavenly Tao receded. With no impetuousness left in nature's spiritual energy, Yang Immortal Emperor's proposal had been implemented by Anhao, and everything was evolving for the better. Worth mentioning is that after Anhao's sacrifice, his wife and children received considerable cosmic destiny, and within just 100 years, Guan witnessed the birth of a genius in the An family with a potential lifespan of 8,000 years. Guan wasn't sure if it was the world's favor or Anhao's will that looked after his descendants, but according to his calculations, the An family would rise in the next 10,000 years, eventually becoming one of the strong families in the world. Right now, Guan's hesitation was not about the affairs of others, but his own concerns. He planned to first comprehensively enhance his own Taoist techniques. Then, after accumulating another 200 billion years of lifespan, he could strike for an even higher realm. A lifespan nearing 900 billion years seemed massive, but in truth if he intended to enhance every aspect, it would probably be spent soon. No matter, he must improve. Even though the celestial spirit immortal venerable had already reshaped the order of the great Tao in the Great Thousand World, and the celestial spirit god had not fallen, temporarily avoiding the celestial court's notice, he had to maintain the pace of getting stronger. After this increase in strength, he would start dealing with the celestial spirit god. Guan began to utilize his lifespan breakthrough. You have activated the lifespan breakthrough function. Based on your current realm, the following breakthrough locations have been selected for you. 1. Ascending to Yellow Heaven. 2. Celestial Extreme 9 Heavens. 3. Abyss Tao Sea. 4. Path of the Great Tao. 5. Eastern Sea Celestial Palace. 6. Primordial Emperor Domain. 7. Profound Abyss Divine Pool. 8. Golden Immortal Ancestor Tree. 9. Ling Mountain. Looking at the choices that had popped up before him, many of which he was seeing for the first time, Guan couldn't help but be moved by the infinite vastness of the Great Tao. The path of the Great Tao connected the 3,000 great worlds, and beyond the Great World were many more mysterious places. Guan's previous breakthrough had taken him to the celestial extreme 9 heavens, which left a deep impression on him. After some contemplation, he felt that returning to the celestial extreme 9 heavens was the best option. He was uncertain of the other locations, And although the celestial extreme 9 heavens had powerful beings, they were few in number. With his decision made, Guan chose the celestial extreme 9 heavens for teleportation. Teleporting to celestial extreme 9 heavens will require the consumption of 10 billion years of lifespan. Do you wish to proceed? Continue. Guan closed his eyes after making his choice, and that long-absent sensation of dizziness appeared. After a while, Guan opened his eyes, and what met his gaze was an endless sea of clouds, majestic and vast. The sky was still so high with no land in sight, and no matter which direction he looked, he saw nothing but the sea of clouds and the sky. He immediately activated his lifespan barrier and sat down to meditate on the spot. Without saying a word, he began to evolve and improve, starting with his physique. Each time, Guan invested 1 billion years of lifespan, operating slowly. It took nearly 4 billion years to advance from the primordial Tao golden body to the primordial infinite body. This time would surely take even more. Billion after billion years, Guan was collected and composed, not feeling the slightest bit of heartache. In the end, it took approximately 50 billion years for the primordial infinite body to advance to the primordial reincarnation undying body. As the final prompt fell, an enormous surge of Tao spiritual qi flooded towards Guan. The boundless sea of clouds began to churn in a very short time, luckily, not as dramatically as the previous breakthrough. Guan closed his eyes and began to immerse himself. An hour later, his physique's transformation was successful. With the primordial reincarnation undying body, not only did his physique grow stronger, but the power of the great Tao could no longer control his flesh, and it was not worn down by reincarnation. Even if his lifespan reached its limit, his body could exist forever. Now, he could enter reincarnation in his physical form as smoothly as a fish takes to water. Guan opened his eyes and his gaze fell on the cultivation technique column in his attribute list. Upgrade the main technique first. Great Tao Great Freedom as You Wish Bible. He began to invest lifespan for evolution. Investing 36 billion years of lifespan at once, the Great Tao Great Freedom as You Wish Bible was elevated to the Taoist Dominator skill, reaching an in-depth level of understanding. Tao spiritual qi surged toward him once again, and an endless stream of Taoist technique memories burst forth in his mind. Sar the Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The Taoist Dominator skill, as the name implies, could dominate the Great Tao. Once mastered, Guan could comprehend any kind of Great Tao, and in facing any kind of Great Tao, he could discern its weaknesses in an extremely short time. Most importantly, this technique could merge the 3,000 Great Tao into one force, aptly named the Dominator's power. Another half an hour passed, and Guan successfully mastered the Taoist Dominator skill. He didn't have time to experience it in depth and continued to enhance other Taoist techniques. Regardless of the tier the Taoist technique reached, lifespan evolution could always allow Guan to master it within half an hour, which was also a significant advantage. The Great Thousand Following Heart to Void skill was upgraded to the Sun and Moon Selfless Divine Tao, consuming nearly 50 billion years of lifespan. This technique helped Guan to conceal his cultivation level and aura. Even those with a realm higher than his could not see through it, though of course if the disparity in cultivation was too vast, it might not remain hidden, which was why he continued to elevate this technique. The Sun and Moon Selfless Divine Tao was even more domineering, allowing Guan to disappear into the order of the Great Tao. Even if he was still present, no one would detect him. He could even turn his aura into the sun, moon, and stars, perfectly concealing himself. Again, the inheritance took half an hour. After the inheritance ended, Guan's eyes turned to the secret skills, preparing to upgrade his combat methods. Just then, a vast aura descended, one that far surpassed that of the heaven-balancing golden immortal, causing a slight change in Guan's expression. He looked up. He saw a gigantic cyan bird appear in the sky, its wings spread wide, eclipsing the sun. Its feathers shimmered with the colors of the rainbow, like a godly bird from creation, radiating an endless ancient and holy aura. This cyan bird was by far the most colossal creature Guan had ever seen. Even set against the celestial extreme 9 heavens, the celestial vault seemed almost incapable of containing it. Guan hurled a lifespan detection at the cyan bird. 9 heavens cyan bird, early stage of Tai Ching Golden Immortal Realm 218,726,929, 702/50, 000, 000, 000, 000, 000/50, 000 000 more than 200 billion years old. A lifespan of 50 trillion years. Truly terrifying. Killing it would direct unlock the ability for a trillion years of lifespan. But the words, Tai Ching Golden Immortal, only allowed Guan to contemplate the idea. Of course, even if Guan had the ability to slay it, he would not take action. That was not his style. Moreover, he suspected that behind the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird, there stood even more powerful immortals, like the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor. As Guan marveled at the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird's lifespan, the bird suddenly descended, landing 10,000 miles away. 10,000 miles is a long distance for mortals, but to the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird, a single movement of its claws could reach Guan's dojo. This made Guan tense, ready to teleport away at any moment. The Nine Heavens Cyan Bird folded its wings and perched on the sea of clouds, its head reaching unscalable heights. Guan then saw a figure emerge, the white-robed woman known as the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor, appearing atop the head of the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird. As before, Guan was still unable to perform lifespan detection on the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor, indicating that her true body was not present. Two powerful entities appeared beside her, causing Guan to dare not continue his evolution. He decided to wait for the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor and the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird to leave before resuming. If they refused to leave, he would have no choice but to teleport back to the celestial spirit great world. Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 555. Entering Reincarnation. Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor stood atop the head of the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird, his gaze sweeping across the sea of clouds, which tightened Guan's heart and made him constantly ready to teleport back. Each teleportation needed 100 billion year lifespan, making it 200 billion year lifespan for a round trip. Naturally, Guan was reluctant to return lightly. The Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor had not discovered the lifespan barrier. The Nine Heavens Cyan Bird was also unaware. After a while, a slightly childish female voice rang out. "Your Majesty, are you truly not going to the Grand Assembly of 10,000 Immortals?" Guan could feel that this voice originated from the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird, even though the Cyan Bird had not spoken. The Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor, looking into the distance with a cold expression, replied, "Boring. I've attended several times. There's not much difference. All superficial interactions, and I don't need the opportunities from the Grand Assembly of 10,000 Immortals. Your Majesty, although the Celestial Extreme Nine Heavens is uniquely endowed, discussing Tao with other immortal cultivation great powers could further aid your cultivation. If you wish to go, you can go on my behalf. If you don't go, there's no point in me going. Forget it, let's not go. By the way, Your Majesty, what do you think caused this anomaly?" The Nine Heavens Cyan Bird changed the topic and looked around the boundless sea of clouds as it spoke. The Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor, expressionless, said, "The Celestial Extreme Nine Heavens, located above the Great Thousand World, is a juncture of the Great Tao. The anomaly here might have originated from the lower realm. Even I cannot directly determine." Hearing this, the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird fell into thought, its bird eyes flickering with strange light. Above the Great Thousand World? Guan captured this information, growing more curious about the Celestial Extreme Nine Heavens. Could it be that the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor has no connection to the Celestial Court? Guan did not feel the Celestial Tao destiny from the Nine Heavens Cyan Bird, and as for the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor, since she was not the true body, he could not sense anything. If he closed his eyes, he wouldn't even be aware of her presence. After a while, the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor leaped into the air and flew towards the distance. The Nine Heavens Cyan Bird followed closely behind, and they soon vanished at the end of the sea of clouds. Guan relaxed and waited patiently. 1 hour later, no longer sensing the aura of Nine Heavens Cyan Bird, he reopened the attribute panel and continued to enhance. Next up was the Eternal Infinite Divine Sword. Although he had already mastered the Sacred Heart Sword Tao, which merged with the River of Sword Tao, deemed an independent existence, he felt he couldn't solely rely on the Sacred Heart Sword Tao. He needed stronger sword techniques as his trump card. The Eternal Infinite Divine Sword evolved into the 3,000 Slaying Tao Swords, achieving the Mastery Realm, consuming 80 billion-year lifespan. During the half-hour inheritance, neither the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor nor the Nine Heavens Scion Bird returned. Thus, Guan continued to invest his lifespan in evolution. Profound Yellow Eternal Dao Step advanced into Daola Celestial Net Step, consuming 42 billion-year lifespan and reaching the realm of integration. Celestial Dark Purple Micro Saint Dao Body evolved into Hongmeng Void Golden Body, also at the realm of integration, consuming 76 billion-year lifespan. After upgrading the most core Daoist techniques, Guan turned his attention to the Great Soul-Capturing Immortal Technique. This technique could perform soul search, but as the enemy's realm was higher, the difficulty of soul search increased. It needed enhancement. This was still the transformation of soul-capturing technique that Jianghu had taught him years ago. Guan spent 130 billion-year lifespan in one breath, allowing the Great Soul-Capturing Immortal Technique to advance several levels, finally evolving into Calamity Absolute I. Calamity Absolute I could not only perform soul search but also bring bad luck to the enemy, with the nature of the calamity shaped by the caster's imagination. A very domineering divine skill. That's it. Search * the novel. F. Iyer. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Guan dared not continue evolving because, accounting for the lifespan barrier's consumption, he only had 230 billion-year lifespan left and still needed 100 billion-year lifespan to teleport back. After a series of evolutions and enhancements, Guan felt a complete transformation even though his cultivation level had not increased. His strength had greatly changed. Now, handling Celestial Spirit God should be effortless. Thinking this, Guan stood up. He gazed at the constantly churning sea of clouds, as if for one last look, since he definitely needed to change locations upon the next breakthrough. The recent appearance of the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor and Nine Heavens Scion Bird was definitely not a coincidence. They must have intended to investigate his whereabouts. Even if their words didn't directly reflect it, he had to stay alert. Guan chose to teleport back, and as he thought, he vanished on the spot. Guan returned to the forests near the Chenkuan sect and could no longer see an Xian and the others. Unable to find him, an Xian returned to the dojo to cultivate. Guan did not hurry back. He jumped down from a tree, crossed a creek, and sat down on a large stone by the creek. Lifting his right hand, palm facing upwards, a skull appeared in his palm, the size of a pebble, indeed that of the Celestial Spirit God. The disheveled Celestial Spirit God opened his eyes and looked up at Guan, his expression becoming calm. After a century of suppression, he had adjusted his mindset and was prepared to face any outcome. Guan's pupils suddenly turned deep red, and the pupils of the Celestial Spirit God facing him involuntarily widened. Then his expression turned dull. Calamity Absolute I. He began to scour the memories of the Celestial Spirit God. The morning sun shone down, casting a long shadow of Guan. After a long while, Guan's eyes returned to their normal color, and his brows furrowed. The memories of the Celestial Spirit God were too simple. Spending years meditating under the World Gate, much of his memory was blank, presumably related to the Celestial Court. However, Guan still obtained some useful information, such as why the Celestial Spirit God plotted against the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable. Many years ago, the Celestial Spirit God could have obliterated the Celestial Spirit Great World, but he wanted to obtain the World Punishment Dao Pearl held by the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable. The World Punishment Dao Pearl, born from the Great Dao, was a supreme treasure that could be used in battle and for comprehending the Dao, with infinite marvelous uses. The Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable dared not readily use the pearl, fearing its master would come searching. The owner of the World Punishment Dao Pearl was the Emperor Ziwei. Through the memory of the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable, Guan saw the Emperor Ziwei. This Emperor Ziwei looked exactly like the unparalleled Emperor Ziwei that the Black Profound Emperor had encountered in his lifetime. Guan guessed that the Emperor Ziwei was the reincarnation body of the Emperor Ziwei. Great powers project across the heavens, manifesting reincarnation, which is common. How formidable was the Emperor Ziwei, able to fight against hundreds at the same realm, and even force enemies to retreat. No wonder, being the reincarnation of the Emperor Ziwei. As Guan reflected inwardly, the Celestial Spirit God regained his senses. Startled, he looked at Guan and asked, "What have you done to me?" Guan looked down at him and inquired, "Do you want to die or do you want to live?" When Guan questioned whether the Celestial Spirit God's apocalyptic acts were related to the Celestial Court, and the Celestial Spirit God admitted it was his own selfishness, Guan actually felt a trace of respect for him. The celestial spirit god was bold and accountable. It seemed a pity to kill such a person directly. The destruction by the celestial spirit god was nefarious to living beings, but from a cosmic perspective, he protected the cosmic order. Of course, whether the celestial spirit god wanted to live depended on his attitude. Faced with Guan's question, the celestial spirit god furrowed his brows. After a moment of silence he said, "I cannot possibly serve you. My fate today is merely reaping what I sowed. Had I not coveted the treasure and followed the heavenly Tao earlier, it would not have come to this. Just kill me." Having said so, the celestial spirit god closed his eyes. Suddenly, Guan asked, "Have you ever been immortal?" Hearing this, the celestial spirit god opened his eyes, looking at Guan in surprise. In the memory of the celestial spirit god, he was born a favored child of heaven and was taken as a disciple by the Emperor Ziwei early on. He stood above the masses from birth. Guan looked down at him and said coldly, "To kill you now would be too easy for you. Go to the human world and experience the struggles of humanity. In the eyes of immortal gods, mortal spirits are no different from dust, but how would you know the effort mortal spirits make just to survive?" As his words fell, Guan flipped his hand and threw the celestial spirit god into the creek. As the celestial spirit god fell, he looked at Guan. In his view, Guan was so magnificent. Indeed, he did not understand human suffering, but at that moment, he understood how mortals looked up to immortal gods. His vision quickly plunged into darkness. After Guan flipped his hand to let him go, he used his own divine sense to cast him into the cycle of reincarnation. After contemplating the Taoist dominator skill and the sun and moon selfless divine Tao, Guan could simply manipulate the path of reincarnation and make the celestial spirit god reincarnate. It was not difficult for him. He made the celestial spirit god be born in the celestial spirit great world to prevent him from escaping. The celestial spirit god was already bound by the Guiyuan divine Tao and his divine soul sealed. Without Guan's action, he would remain forever in the cycle of reincarnation, unable to escape. Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 556. Guan's story. Guan entered the Taoist field of the beginningless, and from a distance, he saw two people engaged in combat high up on the mountains. It was LV Xian and Chen Chuan. These two were the most combative, even more so than the blood prison great saint, but they were merely sparring, not fighting out of anger, so Guan never stopped them. Watching Chen Chuan's elegance in the sky, Guan was very gratified. In his memories, he had never seen Xiao Chuan so spirited and confident. He also pondered when to let Chen Chuan recover his memories from his past life, but he felt that such matters shouldn't be rushed. Letting nature take its course was best. A figure suddenly appeared beside Guan. It was an Xan, who looked at Guan with a grievance and said, "Master, why didn't you say a word to me when you left yesterday?" You're the master, or am I the master?" "Ah, I just wanted to go out with you for a bit." "If you're bored, you could go to the Chenkuan sect. Many new things will happen there, and I will also go to see the excitement." "Really? Really?" Guan was not lying. With the reshaping of the celestial spirit great world, various great heaven and earth started to interconnect. Sects began to wander the world, and in the coming years, the entire celestial spirit great world would embrace a thriving vitality. A new era was beginning. Sects vied for supremacy. Different great heaven and earth harbored different immortal cultivation philosophies, and these philosophies would clash, creating more sparks. The next era would be unprecedented. Those great powers who survived from the old era would rise to the pinnacle of authority, and the new great world would be far stronger than before. The new rules of heaven and earth would conceive more geniuses, even elevating the potential of these talents. Guan felt the destiny of heaven and earth, already foreseeing the birth of many geniuses with the ultimate lifespan of 9,999 years. He was very much looking forward to it. As the master and disciple chatted, they walked along the mountain path. The gentle breeze made an Xian a bit distracted. Unconsciously, she was already 9,521 years old. She felt her life experiences weren't rich, but this also meant she had lived a peaceful and comfortable life. She turned her head to look at her master beside her. His profile sent her heart into a state of tranquility. Xianxia the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. She, too, began to feel anticipation. 10,000 years later, a million years later, or even 10 million years later, would she still be able to follow by her master's side? If she followed, what kinds of views would she see? The spring festival of the Qianquan sect had just ended, and the shadows of cultivators could be seen everywhere between the mountains. Most of the cultivators were flying in the same direction, towards a giant city surrounded by mountains on all sides, bursting with rays of light like a mirage, brimming with the grandeur of an immortal city. This city was Qianquan sect's main city. 1,000 years had passed since the great world was reshaped. The Qianquan sect seized the opportunity to develop quickly, not only becoming the leader of the orthodox Taoist sect on the Nine-Spirit continent but also establishing prestige in the surrounding seas. This year, Qianquan sect planned to hold the 100 Teachings Conference, inviting hundreds of orthodox Taoist sects from inside and outside the seas to discuss and exchange Taoist techniques. This was the first time for Qianquan sect to hold such an event, making Qianquan sect's main city extraordinarily lively. Within the main city, the library pavilion was packed. Under Nzin's guidance, the structure of Qianquan sect was almost identical to the Supreme Sect's. However, Qianquan sect was far away from the Supreme Sect, so the two sects had not intersected for the time being. Why is Qianquan Venerable sold out again? With the foundation of the Qianquan sect, why can't you print a few more copies? A young male disciple stood in front of the counter, glaring at the library pavilion disciple and demanded. The library pavilion disciple spread his hands helplessly and said, "Brother, shouting at me is no use, I'm just in charge of selling." The young male disciple glared at him and left with a flick of his sleeve. Then another disciple approached the counter to inquire about the book Qianquan Venerable. At this moment, on the second floor of the library pavilion, Guan, dressed in blue robes, stood in front of a row of bookshelves browsing books. Celestial Demon Child came over and saw the title of the book he was looking at, not helping but curl her lips in distaste. "Young master, even a book like this is worth your time?" Outside the dojo, Guan had instructed not to call him master, but young master instead. Although Celestial Demon Child didn't understand, she thought calling him young master was quite nice. At least it made their relationship seem more equal, which often led her to wild fantasies. Guan, holding Nine Spirits Hero Legend, smiled softly and said, "As long as it's a book, it's worth reading." Since he started writing within the Qianquan sect, a trend of novels had been set off, and Nine Spirits Hero Legend was one such novel about the protagonist's adventures, clearly trying to imitate his style. Hearing Guan's words, Celestial Demon Child pursed her lips and then turned to leave. She planned to take a walk in the city. With her cultivation level of the loose immortal realm, she was considered a great cultivator within Qianquan sect and wouldn't run into trouble, especially with Guan there. After Celestial Demon Child left, Guan continued reading. It wasn't long before two women ascended to the second floor, none other than Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai. Since being saved by an Xian, they had lived on the Nine-Spirit continent. Later, seeing the Qianquan sects rise to power, they voluntarily joined, and now they were also disciples of the Qianquan sect. In reality, given their status, they could become elders, but they didn't want to be too tied down to the Qianquan sect, knowing that they would eventually leave. "Sis, why did we come here?" Tang Kai asked in confusion. The library pavilion was full of miscellaneous books. If one sought the pursuit of Taoist techniques, they would visit the scripture pavilion. Li Xuanyu answered, "Just to look around." "Your heart is too impatient. It's good to temper it." Her gaze swept through the second floor, passing over each disciple as if seeking something. However, after looking around, she did not find the person she was looking for, and a look of disappointment flashed in her eyes. Tang Kai, upon hearing Li Xuanyu's words, immediately felt dissatisfied. She had just completed a meditation retreat of 800 years and still she was considered impatient? She was about to retort when she saw Li Xuanyu walk toward the stairs leading to the third floor. "I definitely am not impatient." These years, Tang Kai caught up with Li Xuanyu and tried to defend herself. "Senior Sister Li." A voice came through, bringing Li Xuanyu's steps to a halt. She turned to look and saw Guan, holding a book and walking between two rows of bookshelves. Li Xuanyu felt a little dazed, having not seen him for 10,000 years. Guan seemed totally different from the person in her memories. The Guan in her memory was cautious and reserved, but the Guan before her now was handsome and extraordinary, seemingly an immortal walking amongst mortals. Tang Kai glanced at Guan, her expression one of suspicion. She was astounded at her first sight of Guan. What a handsome man. This was only her personal judgment, and not a case of love at first sight. She had wandered the world and seen many people, but had never come across a cultivator with a presence like Guan's. Even her beloved Li Ya did not have an aura to match Guan's. What attracted her more to Li Ya was his heroism and loyalty. Guan walked over to Li Xuanyu and asked with a smile, "Senior Sister Li, don't you recognize me?" Li Xuanyu came back to her senses and said with emotion, "Of course, I recognize you. To be honest, the reason I've come here is to look for you. After all, your disciple is also on this continent, and everything about the Qianquan sect is a lot like the Supreme Sect. I guessed it had something to do with you." She didn't know that Guan was the supporting Dao sword venerable, but the strength of an Xian proved Guan's Dao practice had already surpassed hers. The reason she wanted to find Guan was merely to express her gratitude in person. She was not foolish, and Xin's rescue surely must have been at Guan's behest. "I don't have such great capabilities. How about we find an inn to catch up on old times?" Guan asked with a smile, and naturally, Li Xuanyu had no objections. Guan did not neglect Tang Kai and introduced himself to her. After exchanging pleasantries, the three of them went downstairs. Noticing Guan spending money to buy the Nine Spirits hero legend, Tang Kai's expression became odd. Now aware that Guan was Xin's master, she held him in high esteem, but she hadn't imagined that such a great cultivator would read such trivial texts. Shouldn't a great cultivator be delving into the great Tao? Li Xuanyu, however, didn't mind. She knew Guan liked reading books. Seeing that Guan still had the same hobby made her feel a sense of closeness, as though the distance between them had narrowed. Later on, the three of them sat down at the closest inn, and after inquiring about each other's experiences, Guan turned the conversation to Li Ya, as Li Ya was the hub of their shared connections. Mention of Li Ya immediately excited Tang Kai, as his fame had already spread to the Nine-Spirit continent. Li Ya, with the Nine Extreme Sacred Heart Sword in hand, might not yet be the world's preeminent sword cultivator, but his strength was already formidable. Coupled with his adventurous spirit, his fame was widespread. People say he's made enemies with the Shaking Light Saint Sect Saint and is being hunted by them. I want to help him, but our sister said I'd just be in the way. Guan, since you are Li Ya's junior brother, can you help him? Tang Kai looked at Guan with a tone full of supplication. She had been through a lot with Li Ya and knew the hardships that lay behind his fame. He must be seriously injured again. Otherwise, it wouldn't have come to this point of enmity. Before Guan could reply, Li Xuanyu spoke up coldly. "Tang Kai, don't bother junior brother Gu with Li Ya's affairs. Those were his own choices. Junior brother Gu has already saved us. We owe him a great debt of gratitude. How could we trouble him further?" "But there are no buts," Li Xuanyu said decisively, leaving Tang Kai with no choice but to nod in resignation. Guan looked at Li Xuanyu, finding her solemnity a bit amusing, and replied, "Shaking Light Saint Sect is indeed formidable and is said to have the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma, who is of the sixth heaven of the immortal path. They're not easy to provoke." Sixth heaven of the immortal path. Li Xuanyu's complexion turned unnaturally pale, while Tang Kai grew tense. Guan comforted them. "Don't worry. With the immortal path ultimate treasure, divine exotic city, and the Nine Extreme Sacred Heart Sword in his hands, senior brother Li is a man of great destiny. He will surmount the danger. That sword is the world's foremost divine sword." Hearing his words, Li Xuanyu could only nod, while Tang Kai sank into deep worry. Afterward, Guan brought up the 100 Teachings Conference of the Qianquan sect. Although Li Xuanyu was still engaging in the conversation, the mood had clearly grown colder. Half an hour later, Guan said goodbye to the two women. Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai stood at the entrance of the inn, watching Guan walk away. "Sister, he's Li Ya's junior brother, and thus from the Supreme Sect. Why has he come alone to this faraway place?" Tang Kai asked curiously. Li Xuanyu, looking at Guan's receding figure, said, "Perhaps he's burdened with something, forcing him to leave his homeland. In life, we're often compelled by circumstances beyond our control." Upon hearing this, Tang Kai felt there was a story behind Gu An's silhouette, much like Li Ya. Just then, they saw a stunningly beautiful woman swiftly emerge from the crowd, quickly wrap her arm around Gu An's, and move forward with laughter and conversation, their intimacy evident. They soon disappeared into the throng of people. Tang Kai opened her mouth as if to ask something but didn't manage to articulate her question. Li Xuanyu too remained silent. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 557, Celestial Spirit Reincarnation, Borrowing Life Amid the Scorching Summer Days. Within the Taoist field of the beginningless, beside a lake, Guan was preaching the great Tao to his disciples, who were listening as if intoxicated. Seeing that everyone had sunk into the enlightenment of the Tao, Guan took out a jade flute from his bosom and admired it closely. Guan, the great Tao you speak of is truly profound and vast, conjuring in me numerous visions. However, I am very curious. Have you actually seen those embodiments of the great Tao? Shenzhen opened her eyes, looked at Guan, and asked curiously. She was the closest to Guan, and her voice was so soft that it did not disturb the others. Guan glanced at Shenzhen and said, "The great Tao is everywhere. What have you seen? Where do you wish to go?" With a troubled look, Shenzhen said, "I saw the universe and the stars, and a white staircase leading to a door." "What kind of door?" "Indescribable, all I can remember now is vague, but I'm sure it was a door." Shenzhen recounted while speaking. After a pause, she continued to ask, "Guan, do you think those visions I see could be some form of calculation?" Guan smiled at her and said, "That's something you'll have to feel and judge for yourself. It's good that you're thinking about this. Never lose your reverence for the unknown, always be vigilant, for it is often more beneficial than not." Shenzhen nodded and said, "I'll be careful. If the great Tao guides me somewhere, I'm certain I won't go." She had heard from Guan about the experiences of An Hao and Zhu Shi, which made her even more vigilant about inexplicable opportunities. The visions she saw while seeking the Tao seemed like a lure, and she didn't want to be deceived. "If you encounter things that are hard to judge, you can also talk to me about them," Guan said, then stood and turned to walk toward the nearby woods. Shenzhen had no further questions to ask, and she didn't follow Guan's steps. After so many years, she had grown less curious about where Guan went. Now she just wanted to comprehend the great Tao. In its vastness, she could experience all the things she desired. She aspired to become a great cultivator like Guan elsewhere. Guan stepped into the woods and in one step went to another place in the human world. This was a mortal city, bustling streets, with no cultivators seen among the throngs of people, just 2 or 3 transformed demons. However, they did not do any harm but instead were performing their talents in a pavilion known as the Apricot Flower Tower. Guan appeared on the street without drawing the attention of the passers-by, for no one could see him. Even a boy passed through his body, feeling no physical collision. Guan's gaze fell on the side of the street, where a group of beggars squatted in front of a courtyard wall. Among them, a 14 or 15-year-old boy sat with his head down. On closer examination, he had no legs, and only 2 fingers on his right hand, a sight that made it difficult to imagine what kind of torment he had endured. This boy was a reincarnation of the celestial spirit god. This was his 39th time being reincarnated. He was born in a village and before he was 1 year old, his family was raided by bandits, who killed everyone and sold him off. After a life of constant upheaval and numerous struggles, he ended up in such a tragic state. Despite the suffering of the celestial spirit god, Guan had no intention of intervening. Nevertheless, in every life of the celestial spirit god, he would observe. It wasn't to ridicule the celestial spirit god but rather to help him recall some of his previous lives' memories at the time of his death, to let him feel the disparity between immortal gods and mortals. Oddly enough, Guan had not deliberately made the celestial spirit god experience a life of suffering, but most of his lives in the cycle of reincarnation were miserable, and even if born in happiness, he tended to die young, living to a maximum of 70 years in the best-case scenario. On second thought, it was normal, as most mortals have difficulty living past 70. In the scorching summer, this life of the celestial spirit god would end on the flourishing streets, with no one caring about his death. Not until a house servant from a wealthy nearby household dragged his body away, ultimately dumped in the wilderness, and devoured by scavenging wolves. And so, Guan merely stood on the street watching the celestial spirit god, with people coming and going as if in a dream. Sarch * the novel. F. Ire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. This live celestial spirit, named Little Five, had been adopted by an old beggar. He was the fifth child taken in by the old man, hence the name Little Five. At the beginning of the year, the old beggar passed away, and Little Five now followed the eldest child for survival, presently in the throes of illness. To seek medicinal herbs, the eldest was at that moment being beaten by the servants of a medicine shop on another street. This city bustled with such vibrancy. People were drinking and making merry, spilling wine and meat on their tables. Some were reciting poetry and discussing romance under the trees, while others were barely breathing, lying on their beds as their family fought over money for medicine. There were people who went about their routines like zombies, thinking not of the future, but of ending the day's tasks sooner. The countless conditions of sentient beings unfolded before Guan's eyes, his expression unchanging, just quietly watching Little Five. Little Five seemed to feel something and slowly lifted his head. The streets were noisy and busy before his eyes. The close proximity of prosperity felt unattainably distant. In a daze, he saw an additional figure on the street, with people passing right through it, which was very eerie. His hands trembling, he raised them and rubbed his eyes to make sure he wasn't seeing things. Indeed, there was a figure that no one else but he could see. Could that be an immortal god? Xianxia spoke weakly, while the two beggars beside him were asleep and didn't hear his murmur, and the other beggars didn't pay attention to him either, because everyone knew he was dying. Guan was surprised that Xianxia could see him. He hadn't intended for Xianxia to be able to see him. With that thought, Guan willed his presence to deepen, and he disappeared from Xianxia's sight in an instant. Seeing that he had disappeared, Xianxia instinctively looked in other directions. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't see Guan again. It was just an illusion after all. I knew someone like me couldn't possibly encounter an immortal god. Xianxia hung his head low again, continuing to endure the suffering from his illness. Until dusk, a beggar walked over, quivering. It was Xianxia's older brother, known as Lao Da. He squatted in front of Xianxia, placed the medicinal herb bag stained with blood on the ground, shook Xianxia, but there was no response from him. Lao Da's eyes widened with bloodshot eyes, and his right hand trembled as it moved toward Xianxia's nose. Soon, he got a fright. He didn't push Xianxia away. Instead, he lifted Xianxia onto his back and, taking the medicinal herb bag, walked away. Following that, Lao Da carried Xianxia on his back and went to all the large and small pharmacies in the city. But no one was willing to treat Xianxia. Out of desperation, Lao Da gritted his teeth and carried Xianxia out of the city. As night fell, Lao Da didn't look back amidst the fading hustle and bustle behind him and pressed forward with unwavering determination. Lao Da carried Xianxia aimlessly forward, not knowing where he should go, but he was unwilling to give up. It was only when he heard a wolf's howl that he finally snapped out of it, by which time he had already lost his way. "Don't be afraid, Xianxia, Big Brother will definitely save you, definitely?" Lao Da murmured to himself softly. He was trying to bolster his own courage. There were always legends in the countryside of immortals living deep in the mountains. The physicians in the human world were not willing to save his brother, so he had to seek out an immortal. He's already dead. Where do you think you're going to take him? Such deep brotherly love. Well, we could save him, but you'll have to give something in return. 3 feminine voices rang out, coquettish and seductive, making one's imagination run wild. Except in the darkness of the night, they seemed sinister and frightening. Fear gripped Lao Da internally, his filthy face unable to hide the terror as he swallowed and asked, "What do I have to give to save my brother? Could it be a demon?" Their voices didn't sound like those of immortals. Lao Da thought so, and without any other options available, he braced himself and inquired further. Suddenly, a cold wind blew from the depths of the forest, forcing Lao Da to instinctively step back. On the trunk of the tree before him appeared 3 white foxes, smirking cunningly, their eyes glowing green in the dark night, which was quite terrifying. Lao Da's legs trembled with fear. The sight of a demon directly drowned his heart in terror, yet he did not throw Xianxia down and flee. One of the white foxes chuckled. "Become our servant and we will save him." Lao Da mustered his courage and asked, "Just as a servant?" "As a servant for life, until you die of old age. Oh, by the way, if your brother wants to live, he must borrow someone else's life. Before dawn, you must kill a person and bring them before us. Otherwise, once daylight comes, even if the celestial spirit god himself appeared, there would be no reversing fate. The white fox in the middle sneered coldly, her words sending a chill through Lao to kill. Kill someone? Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 558 The Legend of Lu Qiuxian. The night was like water. 3 white foxes teasingly stared at the boss, as if looking at prey. Faced with their gaze, the boss was engulfed in an inner struggle, and little Five on his back had no breath left, his body growing stiffer, which made his heart even more anxious. Although he was a beggar, living at the lowest strata of society, many people humiliated him, but he had never thought about killing anyone. At most he just wanted to beat up those who bullied him. In his view, killing was an unforgivable act, but his younger brother Little Five was still waiting for him to rescue. The boss took a deep breath, he looked up at the 3 white foxes and gritted his teeth. This is it, take my life to save my brother, and let my brother serve you as a servant for a lifetime. Little Five was disabled, and life was hard to manage by himself. If he could be tied to these 3 demons, perhaps he could find a better way out. Although demons were not as powerful as the immortal gods, they were still not comparable to ordinary people. What if the demons could make Little Five grow legs? Hearing what the boss said, the 3 white foxes were stunned for a moment and then they started giggling. Your brother is a cripple, is he supposed to serve us, or should we serve him? Mortal, you think too much. Such a coward doesn't even deserve to serve us. Facing the demon's mockery, the boss was not angry, just more nervous and uneasy. He finally had a chance to save his brother. How could he give up? As long as you are willing to go into the city and kill, we can make your brother normal, repairing the physical defects, and there are plenty of evil people in this city. It's not just your brother you'd be saving. One white fox said with a profound meaning, which made a new light shine in the boss' eyes. At the same time, Guan stood under a nearby tree watching this scene. These 3 white foxes were Tier 2 demons, comparable to the Foundation establishment realm, still unable to undergo transformation. What they said was true, hoping the boss would kill the evil people in the city. They dared not act personally, because there were immortal cultivation sects nearby that would capture and kill misbehaving demons, thinking that using the boss as a proxy would be enough to deceive everyone. Guan had no intention of interfering. Even if people died because of this, he wouldn't care. He had rescued too many beings before, now he wouldn't hesitate over the life and death of one person. Of course, if someone truly moved his heart, he would act as he wished. Eventually, the boss agreed. He put down Little Five and then returned to the city alone. As soon as he left, the 3 white foxes surrounded Little Five and began casting spells to protect his soul. Little Five's lifespan and maximum lifespan were not merely 15 years old. Indeed, they had ways to save his life. But from now on, it would be hard for him to sever ties with demons. Guan watched for a while and then disappeared from the spot. Even though there were 3 white foxes altering his fate, Little Five's life was destined not to ascend to immortality. This was the punishment Guan had in mind for the celestial spirit god. Guan wouldn't deliberately manipulate the celestial spirit god's birth and life experiences, but would set a limit on his life. The summer night wind still carried a bit of cold. One white fox suddenly shivered and said in a low voice, "Why am I a bit worried, feeling like this might cause trouble?" The fox next to her glared and scolded. "What's there to be afraid of? Are you going to be a concubine for that profligate young master from the city lord's mansion?" "I don't want to. He looks so disgusting. Mainly because he bullies too much, we must kill him, and once that guy comes back, we'll pass on his martial arts to him." "It can only be so." The voices of the 3 white foxes gradually quieted down, and eventually, the woods fell into a silent, oppressive and terrifying stillness. Sand filled the sky, and on a cliff, Jianghu with all white hair stood at the edge, shirtless, looking down at the blood lake below. His upper body was muscular, full of power, with blood streaks twisting, making him look even more terrifying. A Buddha head flew out from the sand. It was the Buddha Immortal. Buddha Immortal looked at Jianghu, his stone face showing a complicated expression. He was forced to teach Jianghu to cultivate, but he hadn't expected Jianghu to be so suited to his Tao, far exceeding his expectations. If he could really possess Jianghu, maybe he could surpass this life in the next one. Just thinking about it made him regret. Of course, even with several more courage, he wouldn't dare act recklessly. Just the thought of how Guan felt pressing down on his head made him shiver in fear. Jianghu turned to look at the Buddha Immortal and asked, "Where is the realm master of the divine exotic realm now?" Buddha Immortal replied, "According to your wish, I have sent him to one great thousand world, and he is now very safe. If I find out you've deceived me, this favor will turn into hatred. Rest assured, since I've already done this much, why would I kill him? He's in the Tai's great world. Once your cultivation ends, I will send you to that great world. There, the opportunities are abundant, and the control of the immortal gods is weak. It's a perfect place for your growth." The Buddha Immortal didn't take offense to Jianghu's rudeness and replied calmly. Thousands of years had passed, and he had now shifted his mindset, beginning to look forward to Jianghu's future. Jianghu had such a powerful being behind him, yet they hoped he would mentor Jianghu, seeing it as an opportunity. No matter how high his realm might be, one always needed a backing. Should the celestial court discover him one day, perhaps he could rely on the existence behind Jianghu. Hearing the Buddha Immortal's answer, Jianghu asked no more. After cultivating in this realm for so many years, his heart had also calmed down. Rather than dwelling on calculations he couldn't resist, it was better to grasp the time and diligently cultivate. He raised his right hand, and a bloody wind emerged from his palm, forming a small vortex. In an instant, the yellow sand from the sky rushed over, and his right hand rose higher until a yellow sand tornado appeared on his palm, becoming increasingly spectacular. The Buddha Immortal asked in surprise, "You can already feel the force of heaven and earth in this realm?" "Indeed, it doesn't seem difficult. I'm curious, can I use the control over the force of heaven and earth in other great worlds?" Jianghu replied. The Buddha Immortal smiled and said, "Naturally, the great world I opened is not weak. Moreover, this realm has existed for an incredibly long time. If you can control this realm, you could use the force of heaven and earth in other great worlds." Upon hearing this, Jianghu's mouth curled into an almost arrogant smile. At that moment, he thought of Master Gu and Li Ya. During the long years of cultivation, he often thought of these two people, relying on the remembrance of old friends to recall where he came from and where he would go in the future. "Master Gu, Li Ya, you can't imagine how strong I've become now. I really hope to let you witness my growth." Jianghu was surging with emotions, growing stronger, gaining more and more confidence. If Master Gu and Li Ya were already dead, Jianghu would also go to seek them through reincarnation. Isn't immortal cultivation all about pursuing one's desires? What he desired was to enjoy drinks and travel the universe with Master Gu and Li Ya. The Buddha Immortal looked at the tornado in Jianghu's hand and thought of another person, wondering if Jianghu would ever have the chance to compete with that individual. "Buddha Immortal, how much longer until I can leave?" "Don't rush. I have one more divine skill to teach you. Once you master it, you can leave." "Oh, what is this divine skill?" "It will allow you to travel through the 3,000 great worlds, wandering freely along the river of great Tao." "If that's really possible, then I must visit the river of destiny you mentioned." Hearing Jianghu bring up the river of destiny, the Buddha Immortal smiled and said, "If you go to the river of destiny, you must be wary of one person." Xianxia the Oval Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Who? That person's name is Lu Qiuxian. His Tao practice is profound and unfathomable. He will find everyone who enters the river of destiny and ask them some questions. You must not offend him. Lu Qiuxian. Jianghu noted the name, recognizing that this was a presence that even the Buddha Immortal feared and not someone he could provoke. 100 years had passed since Xiao Wu's resurrection. Guan hadn't visited him, only occasionally glancing at him. This year, the name of Li Ya had once again spread within the Nine-Spirit continent. Li Ya and the Saint of the Shaking Light Saint sect had arranged a life-and-death duel at the human world peak to settle their karma. The day of the duel had not yet arrived, but the news had spread wildly. In today's vast celestial spirit great world, albeit within the domain formerly belonging to the celestial spirit great earth, both Li Ya and the Saint from Shaking Light Saint sect were world-renowned prodigies. I didn't expect Li Ya to gain such popularity. It seems the world is just a... Back in the day, Liya had no power to fight back against me. LV Xian was boasting about his past accomplishments, within Shengtian, Jianghu, Chen Chuan, Celestial Cyan, and Tian by listening. Having cultivated in the Taoist field of the beginningless for so many years, their cultivation levels had reached loose immortal, and with the divine skills and spells they possessed, they were full of confidence, feeling that no peer cultivators from the outside world could match them. Tian Bai tilted his head and said, Liya has the #1 divine sword in the world. Even if your cultivation level is higher than his, I'm afraid he's not someone you can defeat. LV Xian glared and said, relying on a magical treasure doesn't make a hero. I only believe in my physical body. Just then, an Xian appeared out of nowhere and said, think about what kind of magical treasure you all want. Master is preparing to craft magical treasures for everyone. Upon hearing this, everyone looked at LV Xian. LV Xian's face turned red and he coughed falsely. Why are you looking at me? I've already had ideas. Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 559. 10,000 Years of Refining Treasure. Guan's sect. Hearing LV Xian's words, Celestial Cyan, Jianghu, and others couldn't help but roll their eyes. They hadn't been clinging to LV Xian. Instead, they began to discuss the magical treasures they each desired. An Xian was in charge of taking notes. After recording their needs, she would then go to find others. An hour later, an Xian arrived at Guan's courtyard. At the moment, Guan was sitting in front of a great cauldron. His right hand was burning with a 3 pristine true fire as he stared at the flame in his hand. His expression calm and contemplative. Master, I've asked everyone, an Xian said softly, standing next to Guan, holding a stack of paper in her hands. She found it strange. Given her master and the others' abilities, why did she need to run around? Direct communication would do. She figured her master was messing with her, but as a disciple, what could she say? Put it to the side for now, and assist your teacher in what comes next. Guan tossed the 3 pristine true fire beneath the cauldron and then began to speak. As his voice fell, a considerable number of exotic ores and medicinal herbs flew out from his sleeves. And Xin's eyes lit up. She had long wanted to learn artifact refining and yearned for a magical treasure suitable for her. Guan remained seated, casting spells from a distance, transferring materials for artifact refining into the cauldron. An Xian approached the great cauldron, using her divine sense to peek into its contents. Guan was preparing to refine a magic artifact with his own Tao intent, creating a magical treasure unique to his path. It would be a drawn-out process. By the next day at noon, Guan had left an Xian to keep watch while he went to gather medicinal herbs alone. This task was crucial. He had restrained his murderous impulses and greed, so he must not be negligent in harvesting. His annual lifespan income had stabilized around 30 million years. He could continue to improve, but he didn't want to overexert himself or attract too much trouble. The celestial spirit great world had restored order and, for the time being, faced no attacks from forces beyond. For Guan, that was the best kind of life. But destiny was unpredictable, and he couldn't draw the attention of beings from other great worlds to shatter this peace, especially from the celestial court. As long as the heavenly Tao loomed over the celestial spirit great world, Guan couldn't ignore the threat of the celestial court. Time flies like an arrow. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years passed. At noon, within the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guan lay on a rocking chair, pulling up his attribute panel to check. Name: Guan Sia the Novelier. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Lifespan: 11, 587/78, 746, 346, 201. Physique: primordial reincarnation, undying body. Cultivation level: balancing heaven, golden immortal realm, perfection. Nearly 80 billion years of lifespan. Guan pondered when to break through. He had already comprehensively improved himself. In theory, he could successfully break through with 100 billion years of lifespan, but there was always the chance of failure. It was better to wait until he had 200 billion years of lifespan to attempt the breakthrough. Guan stood up and sent a message to the celestial demon child. Shortly after, the celestial demon child appeared in the courtyard, looking excitedly at Guan and asking, "Master, is my magical treasure ready?" Since Guan mentioned 1,000 years ago that he planned to refine magical treasures for everyone, they had all been eagerly waiting. The longer the wait, the higher their expectations. Refining a magical treasure with Guan's Dao practice was not a challenge. A lengthy process meant one thing: their magical treasures would be powerful. Guan nodded with a smile, then waved his sleeve, and a white ribbon flew out from the great cauldron. It was as nimble as flowing cloud, quickly landing into the hands of the celestial demon child. The celestial demon child's eyes sparkled, instantly falling in love with the ribbon. "This is the year's colorful cloud ribbon, a Dao treasure that I've refined, imbued with the will of the great Dao. You can meditate on it for your daily cultivation. Your current Dao practice is insufficient to unleash its true power," Guan briefly explained. As his voice dropped, the year's colorful cloud ribbon burst into a bright light, enveloping the celestial demon child and leaving her rooted to the spot. She began to inherit memories, another of Guan's touches, learning how to make the Dao treasure recognize its master. An Xian sat to the side, looking bemused. Over the years, she hadn't seen how the year's colorful cloud ribbon was formed, and for most of the time, Guan was absent, with her being the one to watch over it. She even suspected that the Dao treasure had been completed long ago. When in doubt, she would ask. When facing her master, she never held back. "This is a Dao treasure, a treasure of the great Dao," Guan answered. "You can't see its shaping process. It must be sensed with your Dao. The fact that you haven't discovered it yet means your Dao isn't strong enough." Those words made an Xian feel ashamed. Guan often lectured them on the Dao, and each lecture was a matter of creation, a grand opportunity that cultivators from the outside world couldn't hope to encounter in their lifetimes, yet she failed to grasp the Dao, which filled her heart with shame. Little did she know, their Dao intent was already strong enough. Many divine thought true immortals, even though stronger than them, couldn't match their Dao intent. Guan could tell that everyone in the dojo possessed the ability to fight beyond their realms, but he chose not to elaborate. With a heaven-balancing golden immortal as a teacher, such achievements were to be expected. While the celestial demon child was still assimilating memories, Guan turned and looked into the distance, mumbling to himself, "Still refusing to give up, huh?" Hearing his words, an Xian asked curiously, "Master, who are you talking about?" "Tang Kai." Hundreds of years ago, unable to resist, Tang Kai had gone to find Li Ya, even calling out to her in the woods outside the dojo and bidding her farewell before she departed. Guan smiled and said, "Not her. I'm talking about a little demon you've never met." Seeing that he was reluctant to elaborate, an Xian didn't press further. In her view, her master, who often went out, must have spread opportunities far and wide, wondering when the Taoist field of the beginningless would gain new people. Time continued to speed up with her thoughts. The news of the celestial demon child receiving a Dao treasure quickly stirred up the dojo. Then, the age-colored cloud silk enveloped the entire sky of the dojo, suppressing all within, immobilizing them, which drove everyone, including an Xian, insane. An Xian even felt that the age-colored cloud silk was second only to her master's fate pen in power. How could she not be excited? Guan maintained a Dao treasure every 1,000 years. The second to receive a Dao treasure was Shenzhen, and her Dao treasure was called the Void Rebirth Zither, whose strings could shake destiny, causality, and even reincarnation, quite domineeringly. Next was the Blood Prison Great Saint, who received a saber named the Heaven-Breaking Blood Prison Saber, which contained the great Dao of slaughter and hinted at ruling the laws of destruction. Jianghu received the Immortal Slaying Flying Saber, another Dao treasure for slaying and fighting, reminding him of the Immortal Slaying Flying Saber from the Investiture of the Gods, which he liked very much. Celestial Xian received the Xian Hong Ling Long Tower, and Tianbai received the White Spirit Exquisite Tower, both Dao treasures not inferior to the others. Together, their might was even greater, named after Yilan's White Spirit Sword and Guan's Xian Hong Sword. And Shang Tian received the Shaking God Spear, its essence filled with fighting will, second only to the Heaven-Breaking Blood Prison Saber in terms of killing power. Chen Chuan got the Reincarnation Dao Slaying Sword, able to comprehend the path of reincarnation. Guan hoped he could remember his past life on his own. LV Xian received the 12 Extreme Heaven Calming World Bead, 12 silver beads that could each create or devour worlds, encapsulating the path of devouring. And Xian got the Six Paths mirror, which could reflect reincarnation and send others into it. During the process of refining Dao treasures, Guan also pondered these great Dao. The 3,000 great Dao are omnipresent, and the Taoist dominator skill could assist Guan in his contemplation directly. These Dao treasures all had the power to surpass immortal path ultimate treasures and would continue to grow stronger with their owners' achievements in the great Dao, their limits unfathomable. At the very least, these Dao treasures were stronger than the 9 extreme sacred heart sword in Li Ya's hands. A Dao treasure every 1,000 years. Except for the ghost mother of ephemera, everyone received a Dao treasure, indicating 9,000 years had passed. Guan, now over 20,000 years old, possessed a lifespan of over 340 billion years. The sunlight spilled down as everyone surrounded an Xian, inquiring about her Six Paths mirror, her face full of excited smiles. Finally done with work, it's time to make a breakthrough. Guan thought to himself silently. Looking back on the 9,000 years that had passed, even he couldn't help but marvel at how swiftly time had flown. As there were no external threats, these 9,000 years were uneventful, a repetition of days. From refining the age-colored cloud silk, Guan spent 10,000 years crafting Dao treasures for his disciples, and through this process, he continued his cultivation. 10,000 years later, even without using lifespan evolution, his power had significantly improved. Master, aside from you, is there anyone else who can refine Dao treasures? Chen Chuan looked at Guan, asking curiously. Holding the reincarnation Dao-slaying sword, even after 2,000 years, he was still enamored with it. The others followed suit, looking at Guan. Guan smiled and said, "Perhaps there are others, but your Dao treasures were forged with my great Dao. In the future, I could help strengthen your Dao treasures and even use them to connect with you." At those words, everyone became even more excited, which meant they could rely on Guan any time. Even if they went out in the future, couldn't they? Master, why not establish a sect? There's no need to recruit many disciples, but at least we could set a banner. In the future, when we introduce ourselves, we can declare which immortal sect we belong to and also add luster to your reputation. Blood Prison Great Saint suddenly suggested, with the others echoing him. This was a plan they had long discussed and were waiting for the right moment to propose. Guan had already heard their discussions over the years and had also been contemplating this matter. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 560. The Primordial Era, Primordial Chaos Body. During the long years of cultivation within the Taoist field of the beginningless, Xian, Chen Chuan, and others would fantasize about traversing the human world, and they too wanted to forge a resounding reputation like Li Ya. They felt grateful towards Guan in their hearts, thinking that he should not be forgotten by the people. If Guan did not want to come into the limelight, then as his disciples, it was their duty to help their master propagate his holy name. Everyone looked at Guan with fervent gazes, waiting for him to confirm the name of their sect. Guan pondered and said, "Let's take the name of the dojo for our own, for we shall be called the beginningless. We have no sect, no door, no clan nor path. Beginningless implies no start and hence is the realm of eternity. I will chase after the realm of eternal immortality, and I hope that you will uphold my will and eventually break free from the shackles of the 3,000 great Dao to become true carefree immortals." Upon hearing this, everyone was ignited with excitement, praising the name one after another. Beginningless is excellent indeed. From now on, I shall introduce myself thus. I am Beginningless Xian. Sounds dominant already. Ha ha ha, I also think it's good. Adding sect or gate would have been rather trite. Perhaps many years from now, the beginningless will become the most mysterious place in the great thousand world, with countless people yearning to pursue it, yet unable to find the way. Fantastic, now that the name of our force is set, I'm even more motivated. From now on, I'll fight for the beginningless. Listening to the discussions of his disciples, Guan shook his head with a wry smile, and without saying more, turned and left. Millennia passed, and the disciples exchanged knowledge with one another. They had already learned how to use Dao treasures and also understood Guan's attitude towards them, that they would not be misused. Once Guan had left, everyone became even bolder. Chen Chuan excitedly asked, "Tell me, is my reincarnation Dao-slaying sword more powerful, or is Elder Li's 9 extreme sacred heart sword stronger?" Wuxia world. Sight and Xian gave him a look and said, "Don't think about such questions. We should show elderly respect." LV Xian snorted. "What's wrong with being stronger than him? Respect is kept in the heart. Who knows, he might one day depend on us for rescue. I think Tao treasures are stronger than Immortal Path ultimate treasures. If you can comprehend the great Tao within a Tao treasure, you should be able to feel its vast Tao intent. Our beginningless Tao treasures will surely be the most powerful magical treasures." After hearing this, an Xian looked at the Six Paths mirror in her hand with a smile on her face. Seeing her not keeping a stern face, the others also smiled and actively discussed the power of the Tao treasures. Though an Xian was of the same generation as them, she had unconsciously established great prestige, and everyone knew Gu and doted on her the most. Even Xinzhan would not act too willfully in front of an Xian. The ghost mother of ephemera stood at the back of the crowd with a fiery heart. Although she had not obtained a Tao treasure, she felt this was as it should be, given she was not Gu An's disciple and had entered the Taoist field of the beginningless as a prisoner. Guan summoning her was clearly a signal. She wanted a Tao treasure too. Perhaps I shouldn't be methodically completing my tasks. I should be more proactive. The master likes to pick medicinal herbs. Why not find a way to increase the production of medicinal herbs? The ghost mother of ephemera thought so as she looked at the people around her. In the reshaped Great Thousand World that had seen 10,000 years pass, the human world had taken on a new appearance. The Holy Court had completely dissolved, and now the War of Thousand Sects was raging, with no sect showing the dominance to unify the world, for the heavens and earth had become more vast than before. Despite the multitude of sects, this period had gained a unified definition. The Primordial Era. A new Great Thousand World was established, where the heavens met the earth and all things bloomed anew. Such a time was known as the Primordial, the beginning of everything. The sects that had survived the previous era and made it to the Primordial Era had all become overlord-level forces. The Supreme Sect was one such power. Now the Supreme Sect dominated the 7 seas and the 3 continents, its influence surpassing even that of the 7-star spirit realm and the star sea congregations of old times. In the 3rd Medicine Valley, which 10,000 years later still held its esteemed position because the sect leader resided in this Medicine Valley. Inside a bamboo forest in the valley, Long Qing, wearing a loose white robe, sat cross-legged on the ground. With unruly hair, he had left his youthful features behind, becoming more composed and unfathomable, looking like a true enlightened being amid the forest. A figure appeared out of nowhere before him. It was Candlestar from the battle court. This reshaped Great Thousand World seems less like it has been reconstructed, and more like reborn. Many heaven and earth ultimate treasures have emerged between the heavens and earth. Over the years, I have fought over them as well. I didn't expect to encounter the blockade of profound Yuan free immortal. Those old undying beings hidden in the depths of the universe have all returned. Candlestar sighed. Clashing swords with profound Yuan free immortal made me fully realize that this world has truly become a part of the Great Thousand World. Just like the other vast worlds I've been to, there's always trouble brewing. Long Qing didn't open his eyes and said calmly, "What's wrong? Have you lost confidence in uniting Tian-Yi and replacing the battle court?" Candlestar chuckled. "How could that be? I've already seized that ultimate treasure. I'm currently brewing the body refinement medicinal broth. In at most 100 years, Long Teng will be able to cultivate the primordial chaos physique. The legends of the primordial era are not to be taken lightly. Every major world will go through such a period." The Long Teng he spoke of was Long Qing's son, Long Teng. Long Teng had taken Candlestar as his master, and Candlestar was extremely dedicated to cultivating Long Teng. Their relationship as teacher and pupil was even closer than that of father and son. Long Qing was not pleased to hear this. Since Long Jun had appeared, Candlestar had clearly started to treat Long Qing as though he were dead and thus focused his cultivation efforts on Long Qing's son. Candlestar discerned Long Qing's upset mood, which he thought was caused by the fate he carried. He thus tried to comfort him. Long Jun has been gone for thousands of years. Both the battle court and the silent destruction god emperor have yet to emerge. Perhaps your destiny has changed. Candlestar still shuddered at the memory of the great war from 10,000 years ago. Such a mighty celestial spirit god was exterminated so easily. He had not seen Gu An's true form, but he guessed that the person was the supporting Tao sword venerable. Not just him, most of the beings at the level of free immortals and those in the Tao fruit realm made the same guess, contributing to the rise of the Supreme Sect. Now, the Supreme Sect already had several divine thought true immortals under Candlestar's manipulation. Aside from those elders who had karmic ties with Guan, the Elder Hall had undergone a complete change of blood. With Long Qing out of sight, Candlestar held the greatest power in the Supreme Sect. Most of the current disciples of the Supreme Sect were born in the primordial era, so they didn't see Candlestar as an outsider. When they joined the sect, Candlestar was already the strongest in the Supreme Sect, and to this day, all disciples look up to him. As for the supporting Dao sword Venerable, that had become an ethereal legend. But with the existence of the heaven-repairing platform, no one doubted the veracity of this tale. Hearing that destiny might have changed, Long Qing opened his eyes. He looked at Candlestar and asked, if the Great Thousand World were to develop to its peak, could it confront the battle court? Candlestar pondered, the battle court controls several Great Thousand Worlds and has risen above them. Of course, the potential of the Great Thousand World is limitless. Some powerful Great Thousand Worlds are even territories the battle court dares not tread. Are there really such Great Thousand Worlds? Long Qing asked with raised eyebrows. Having recovered the memories of his past life, he knew well the might of the battle court. However, he had been born in this universe in his past life and was not familiar with other Great Thousand Worlds. Of course. Hongmeng, 9 Extremes, Taisher, Taiqing, Taiwei. These 5 Great Thousand Worlds are places the battle court dares not overstep. Although I haven't been to them, the Lord of the War Court is extremely wary of these worlds. Moreover, besides the Great Thousand Worlds, there are other planes of existence. They may not exist according to world rules, but they too have nurtured incredibly potent forces. Candlestar paused and said with heavy emphasis, although the battle court is strong, it is far from the strongest. As long as you maintain hope, your limits will certainly surpass theirs. I've always felt that the Long clan is at the core of the battle court. Sooner or later, the Long clan will surpass the battle court and reclaim its power. Upon hearing this, Long Qing's eyes lit up with spirit. Just then, a woman appeared out of thin air beside them. Father, Yizong has returned, seeking justice for his father. He wields an immortal path ultimate treasure and has already penetrated the first sea domain. He might arrive at Taitsong continent today. The woman was Long Qing's daughter, Long Ya, and her expression was complex when she mentioned Yizong. Long Qing said pensively, in the end, he has grown up. 9,000 years ago, I felt his destiny pattern was extraordinary. Candlestar, however, said dismissively, what does having an extraordinary destiny pattern matter? He shouldn't have trampled on the face of the Supreme Sect. Personal grudges could be discussed privately. Let him come. I'll make him understand that even with his exceptional talent, 9,000 years of cultivation is far from enough to shake the foundation of the Supreme Sect. Long Qing hesitated for a moment and then said, don't harm his life after all, he was once my disciple. Some misunderstandings, I think, should be discussed face to face. With a huff, Candlestar vanished on the spot. Once he had gone, Longya let out a sigh of relief. She came up to Long Qing and whispered, Father, I've heard that Yizong has cultivated the primordial chaos body, astonishing the heavens and startling the ghosts. Even the saintess of the Guangyuan Saint sect admires him. Not only is his cultivation level formidable, but he also has a powerful backing now. Long Qing glanced at her and retorted, so what's your point? Longya glared and said, what point can I have? I'm only reminding you that I did let him down, but you were the one who truly pushed him away from the Supreme Sect. You cared too much for the Supreme Sect, causing your disciple to suffer. With that, Longya stomped away. Long Qing wasn't angry. He looked up slightly towards the bamboo forest above and murmured, Master, faced with such a dilemma, what would you choose? He had taken on many disciples over 10,000 years, but as the sect leader, he always considered the disciples of the Supreme Sect more, hoping his own disciples could bear more since they had enjoyed more of the Supreme Sect's resources. The return of Yizong did not alarm Long Qing. It merely made him miss his master. Chapter 561. Breakthrough to Taiqing Golden Immortal Realm Perfection Hidden Spirit Palace. After Guan picked the medicinal herbs, he looked towards Chen Luo and Su Ling who were cultivating in the distance, who were now at the loose immortal realm, a long process from loose immortal realm to wandering immortal realm. even disciples within the Taoist field of the beginningless were pushing through the loose immortal realm. After so many years, Chen Chuan had not encountered another mysterious cause and effect attack, and Guan was wondering whether or not to let Chen Luo and Su Ling go. Not everyone enjoyed staying in one place to tirelessly cultivate. Deep-sea dragon carp came to Guan's side, still dressed in white. Although his features still carried the soft beauty of a woman, compared to 10,000 years ago, he carried a more distinct presence, making it clear he was not a female demon. "Master, do you need me to call them?" Deep-sea dragon carp asked respectfully. He was also at the loose immortal realm, but his minor realm far surpassed both Chen Luo and Su Ling compared to the two. Deep-sea dragon carp's heart was simple. He just wanted to cultivate. Initially, to enter the hidden spirit palace, he had endured countless hardships, and he still remembered them, so he had no desire to leave. "No need. What magical treasure do you want?" Guan asked while stretching his muscles. "Magical treasure?" Deep-sea dragon carp's eyes lit up. He pondered for a moment, and said, "I want a large flag, preferably one that could control the ocean." Although he was already aware of the existence beyond the celestial boundary, his heart was still with the ocean. As he read more books, he also began to form a goal, which was to dominate the ocean. Wuxia world. Sight Wuxia world. Sight. He wanted all creatures in the ocean to worship him as their lord. After hearing his request, Guan just nodded slightly without saying much. Refining 10 Tao treasures had not made him feel tired, because in this process, he was also comprehending the great Tao, and looking back, it still felt wonderful. Thus, he decided to continue crafting Tao treasures. Of course, not everyone could receive his Tao treasures. Like Chen Luo and Su Ling, Guan saving them had already been in consideration of Chen Chuan's face. As his realm continued to rise, Guan naturally became more emotionally stable, making it even harder for someone to truly find a place in his heart and garner his concern than reaching the heavens. He was inherently someone who kept old loyalties. "Go and cultivate, I'll be leaving soon." Seeing deep-sea dragon carp standing by not willing to leave, Guan spoke to send him away. He continued to stand there, admiring sections of the medicine garden in the hidden spirit palace, while he activated the lifespan breakthrough function. You have initiated the lifespan breakthrough function. Based on your current realm, you have been offered the following breakthrough locations. 1. Celestial Extreme 9 Heavens. 2. Ascending to Yellow Heaven. 3. Taiwei Earth Core. 4. Netherworld Deep Sea. 5. Desperate Celestial Tomb. 6. Path of the Great Tao. 7. Azura Abyss. 8. Misty Immortal Court. 9. Ling Mountain. Many of these places had appeared before. This time Guan directly ruled out Celestial Extreme 9 Heavens. He carefully pondered these names, and he was very interested in Ling Mountain. In Wuxia mythology, Ling Mountain was the Buddhist sect's dojo. Now that Celestial Court had appeared, he was not sure if this Ling Mountain was the same as the one in the mythology. Despite his curiosity, Guan did not want to go to Ling Mountain. He vaguely felt that the waters of Ling Mountain were very deep. Other places looked very expansive, while Ling Mountain seemed like just one mountain. Even though the lifespan breakthrough transfer locations are temporarily safe, he did not want to risk it. For him, the bigger the better for breakthrough locations, so even if anomalies were created, no one would intrude into the lifespan barrier. Thinking it over, Guan decided to go to the Desperate Celestial Tomb. There should be no powerful beings in the tomb, or if there were, they would be sealed. Also, for some reason, seeing the Desperate Celestial Tomb, Guan felt a connection to this place. Transporting to Desperate Celestial Tomb will consume 10 billion years of lifespan. Do you wish to continue? Continue. The thought had just arisen when an unusual state that he had not felt in a long time enveloped Guan. He closed his eyes, losing all senses. After a while, Guan felt his feet touch the ground. He immediately initiated the lifespan barrier, and then opened his eyes. What entered his eyes were a series of ruined palaces, and ancient stone pillars towering into the clouds, the ground undulating unevenly, no flowers or grass in sight, only yellow soil and rocks, with a far-off dust swirling into the sky, making the end of the scene indistinct. Vast and desolate. This was Guan's first impression. The Tao spiritual chi here was very dense, even denser than in the celestial extreme 9 heavens, but the aura of the Tao here was not as abundant, with the path of cause and effect being particularly outstanding. This was actually good for Guan. Even though he had begun to explore other paths of the Tao, the path of cause and effect was still his main focus. Looking around, Guan did not feel the presence of any living beings. The desperate celestial tomb was bigger than he had anticipated, endless to his heart-eyes sight. He was curious whether the whole world was inside the celestial tomb, or if this place was hiding it. He sat down on the spot and pulled up his attribute panel to check. Name: Guan. Lifespan: 20, 587/338, 542, 709, 068. Physique: primordial reincarnation, undying body. Cultivation level: balancing heaven, golden immortal realm, perfection. Over 330 billion years of lifespan. This time, he would surely succeed in breaking through. Guan was filled with confidence. The last time he broke through, each crossing the tribulation had to wait 100 million years. Now that he had improved in all aspects, the waiting time needed for crossing the tribulation should not increase by many times. He immediately invested 10 billion years of lifespan into his cultivation level. You practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 200 million years. You forcefully assaulted the Tai Ching golden immortal realm using your great achievement with the Taoist dominator skill, started crossing the tribulation, but you did not endure the 3,000 golden immortal breaking Tao tribulations. Crossing the tribulation failed. You practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 400 million years. You forcefully assaulted the Tai Ching golden immortal realm using your great achievement with the Taoist dominator skill, started crossing the tribulation, but you did not endure the 3,000 golden immortal breaking Tao tribulations. Crossing the tribulation failed. It was indeed the Tai Ching golden immortal. Once every 200 million years for crossing the tribulation, not bad. In reality, a failed tribulation could mean severe injuries or even annihilation. Being able to restore cultivation level and condition within 200 million years at this level was rare. Quickly, the 10 billion years of lifespan were exhausted, all efforts ending in failure. Guan was not panicked at all. This was just the beginning. Another 10 billion years of lifespan. One notification after another popped up, but Guan's attention was drawn to a huge palace in the distance. That massive palace was over 1,000,000 miles away from him. Compared to the surrounding structures, it was exceptionally magnificent. The gates alone were over 10,000 zhang high. For a moment earlier, Guan felt a faint and eerie presence from that palace that disappeared quickly, as if it was his imagination. It seemed that this desperate celestial tomb hid secrets. After all the prompts on his panel disappeared, Guan continued to invest 10 billion years of lifespan. Failure. Invest again. Failure. Invest again. Finally, success. You practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 5,900,000,000 years. You forcefully assaulted the Tai Ching golden immortal realm using your great achievement with the Taoist dominator skill, started crossing the tribulation. You endured the 3,000 golden immortal breaking Tao tribulations. Crossing the tribulation succeeded. Your cultivation level broke through to the early stage of Tai Ching golden immortal realm. You practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 100 billion years. Your cultivation level improved. A massive amount of Tao spiritual Qi immediately surged towards Guan. He didn't stop but continued to invest lifespan. The lifespan required to move from the early stage to the mid-stage of the Tai Ching golden immortal realm far exceeded his imagination, costing him 200 billion years of lifespan. That was truly frightening. However, thinking of the 9 heavens cyan bird who was only in the early stage of Tai Ching golden immortal realm despite being over 200 billion years old, he felt more at ease. After all, this was the Tai Ching golden immortal, a realm unimaginable to the beings of the celestial spirit great world. He continued to invest lifespan until his cultivation level reached the perfection of Tai Ching golden immortal realm. From early stage to perfection, he had spent nearly 100 billion years of lifespan altogether. And he still had over 1.8 billion years of lifespan left. Meanwhile, anomalies began to appear in the desperate celestial tomb. Tao spiritual Qi surged from all directions, forming devastating tornadoes, and runes appeared intermittently in the sky, akin to thunder, oppressively intense. Guan turned his gaze back to the distant huge palace. That trace of eerie presence he had caught earlier reappeared. His eyes intently focused on that half-open giant door, behind which was darkness, ominously severe. After a while, as Guan basked in the luminance of the great Tao, he squinted because he saw a figure walking out from that door. The figure was as large as an ordinary person, seeming minuscule like dust within the doorway. From its shape, it seemed to be a person. Chapter 562. Sin, The catastrophe of the supreme sect under Guan's gaze. A young boy with a full head of black hair walked out from the door. He looked to be just over 10 years old, very thin, dressed in a pair of tattered pants, his face smeared with dirt. He stood in the shadow of the gate, looking around nervously. Sin, Nirvana Realm 0/9999/9999. His cultivation level in the Nirvana realm wasn't particularly strong, but his causality was extremely complex. Even someone as powerful as Guan couldn't see through it. The tangled, complicated causality was intricately related to the Tao rules within the desperate celestial tomb. At first glance, Guan felt like the boy was imprisoned here by the great Tao. But the key question was, how could he be 0 years old? Just born? Guan grew curious about Sin, but his immediate priority was to make a breakthrough. After watching for a while, he closed his eyes. The commotion caused by the breakthrough soon enveloped the entire desperate celestial tomb, making Sin at the gate even more nervous, to the point where he retracted back into the door, only poking his head out. As Guan closed his eyes, time flew by rapidly. An hour later, Guan successfully broke through to the Tai Ching Golden Immortal realm. The state of being a Tai Ching Golden Immortal still revolved around the elevation of the Golden Immortal Tao fruit, above which appeared a patch of azure sky evolved from the Tai Ching, reminding Guan of the Heavenly Tao. The Heavenly Tao encompassed the Great Thousand World just like this. Wuxia world. Sight reaching the Tai Ching Golden Immortal realm led to a transformation of his destiny pattern, unbound by the constraints of the Great Tao. Even without passing through a world gate, Guan could leap out of the Great World. He could even glimpse the domains beyond the Great Thousand World. Nothingness, chaos, utter emptiness, without even light. The desperate celestial tomb, like the Great Thousand World, though not as vast as the celestial spirit Great World, had a similar structure to the Great Thousand World. Aside from a leap in mana, his heart eye began to transform, and his divine sense, too, underwent transformation. As a Tai Ching Golden Immortal, he could come and go as he pleased, his soul body reaching his thoughts instantly without any hindrance in the journey. Within the lifespan barrier, Guan's body shone with a strong light. Tao's spiritual chi formed whirlwinds around him, appearing to hide thousands of stars flickering in brilliance. After fully stepping into the Tai Ching Golden Immortal realm, Guan started challenging higher minor realms. Only after reaching the late stages of the Tai Ching Golden Immortal realm did his thoughts return to reality, and when he opened his eyes again, his whole persona underwent a drastic change. He became more transcendent, exuding an aura of unparalleled dominance. Tai Ching Golden Immortal, the pinnacle of the Golden Immortal Tao fruit and also the sixth realm of the Tao fruit realm, the Great Tao told Guan that very few beings reached this layer of the realm, a domain even the Great Tao couldn't entirely restrict. Guan could feel that his Golden Immortal Tao fruit had reached its limit. Another breakthrough would grant him even greater favors, and his Tao fruit too would welcome a new transformation. The Tao spiritual chi continued to pour into Guan's body, the potent power of the Great Tao surrounding him, as if protecting his breakthrough. Guan's gaze once again turned towards the distance. The giant palace gate no longer bore sight of Sin. He felt somewhat wistful, a feeling that left him confused. His intuition told him that he had some connection with Sin, a connection he couldn't recall, possibly because it pertained to the future. He felt it was likely related to lifespan reincarnation. Perhaps Sin had some connection with one of his reincarnation bodies from a past life. From the moment he saw the desperate celestial tomb, he had this sense, as if something here was waiting for him, something he was compelled to face. Guan gazed at the massive palace while lost in contemplation. Even though he had successfully made a breakthrough, he couldn't fully decipher the causality of the desperate celestial tomb. However, he was certain that the entire world was a celestial tomb, burying countless great powers' causality. He could even envision the scenes from before their deaths. The desperate celestial tomb seemed quiet but was truly terrifying. Without the lifespan barrier, just 1 hour in the tomb would see Guan eaten away by mysterious forces within, making escape impossible. Whatever this force was, Guan couldn't tell, and he even sensed that this force was no less formidable than the Heavenly Tao. Time continued to pass. Guan had reached perfection in the Tai Ching Golden Immortal realm, but the strange phenomena within the desperate celestial tomb persisted. Aside from Sin, he detected no other presences, as if the desperate celestial tomb housed only Sin, a living spirit. Once his cultivation level stopped growing, Guan stood up, choosing to teleport back. As for the confusion brought about by Sin, he decided to let time provide the answers, for with the lifespan breakthrough, there was always the possibility of returning in the future. After a while, Guan reappeared inside the hidden spirit palace. He pulled up his attribute panel, and just the breakthrough of the lifespan barrier alone had cost him 70 billion years of lifespan, leaving him with around 100 billion years. That's fine, there's lifespan left. After giving the deep-sea dragon carp that had already begun its cultivation practice a glance, Guan disappeared on the spot. He didn't return to the Taoist field of the beginningless but took one step to arrive at the outer sect city of the Supreme Sect. It had been tens of thousands of years since he last returned to the Supreme Sect. Compared to the last era, the Supreme Sect was even more prosperous. Even the outer sect city had been expanded, and it was more vast than the sect's main city of before. Guan appeared out of thin air amid the crowd in the streets without attracting anyone's attention. Even when he appeared in front of the passing disciples, they only felt that he had an extraordinary demeanor and were not confused about his sudden appearance, which was the effect of his Tao intent. He could influence people's perception, even manipulate their minds. The Supreme Sect was bustling today. As Guan strolled around, he listened to the discussions among the Supreme Sect disciples. I heard that Grand Elder Zhu Xing himself took action and still couldn't subdue Yitsong. Is the primordial chaos body really so domineering? Not exactly. Yitsong wields an immortal path ultimate treasure, and clearly, there is a prominent figure behind him. It is said that the Guangyuan Saint sect supporting him possesses great powers that transcend the 9 heavens of the immortal path. The Supreme Sect won't be overwhelmed, right? Yitsong was also once a disciple of our Supreme Sect, but now he has become our enemy. What exactly happened back then? Guan listened to these discussions without paying Yitsong any mind. The new era would give birth to new talents, especially since the current great heaven and earth are far stronger than in the last era. Before the great thousand world was reshaped, thousands of great heaven and earths were scattered across the universe. From ancient times to the present, entities wanting to transcend the free immortals realm would leave the great heaven and earth to seek opportunities in the universe, because their own heaven and earth could not help them reach higher realms. Now the great thousand world has been restored to its original state, and the heavenly Tao has re-emerged. Opportunities are everywhere, and more great powers are returning. Some come from the river of the great Tao, others from reincarnation. There are myriad ways, making the overall strength of the celestial spirit great world rapidly increasing. As for the celestial court, perhaps standing too high, they have not noticed this, and the battle court is even more elusive. Returning to the Supreme Sect, Guan mainly felt nostalgic and wanted to come back and take a look. He walked slowly, admiring the street scenes along the way, and before he knew it, he had arrived in front of the library pavilion. This time he didn't step inside. Compared to his last visit, the library pavilion had become majestically imposing, and he felt a sense of unfamiliarity. Old acquaintances kept surfacing in Guan's eyes, bringing a smile to his face. Though the old friends were no longer present, the memories of the past were so beautiful. Whenever he reminisced, his mood would become cheerful. Nowadays, very few people within the Supreme Sect could recognize Guan. These people are highly respected and often in seclusion, not the type to stroll around the outer sect city. Guan just stood in front of the library pavilion, looking at the building, lost in memories. The celestial vault behind him began to change color. Rolling thunderclouds approached from the horizon, quickly covering the sky above the outer sect city. As the world darkened, Guan's thoughts returned to the present. He turned around to look, and at the end of the earth, lightning flashed and thunder roared as if the apocalypse was upon them. Profound Yuan Free Immortal Realms Grand Elder Zhu Xing couldn't stop Yitsong, or more accurately, couldn't stop the Immortal Path Ultimate Treasure in Yitsong's hand. The soul inside that Immortal Path Ultimate Treasure belonged to a heaven-encompassing free immortal from Luotian, and because it was just a soul, it could only exert the strength of a profound Yuan Free Immortal. Combined with the Immortal Path Ultimate Treasure, it had the power to sweep through its realm. Guan saw through the origin of that soul at a glance. This soul, named the Heaven-Supporting Ancestor, came from another Great Thousand World. When the celestial spirit god was preparing to destroy the Great Thousand World, he took advantage of the chaos in the Great Taoist Order and sneaked in. He was fleeing a pursuit, with transcendent forces seeking to execute him. Later, the Heaven-Supporting Ancestor encountered Yitsong. He was attracted by Yitsong's physique and, after thousands of years of companionship, they built a deep connection. Yitsong was determined to seek revenge, and the heaven-supporting ancestor could only support him. After defeating Zhu Xing, Yizong rapidly advanced towards the supreme sect. Yizong, who was over 9,000 years old, had already reached the cultivation level of a loose immortal and was not far from the wandering immortal realm. His talent could indeed be considered top-tier in the current era. However, his strength was mainly due to his reliance on the heaven-supporting ancestor. The world was unaware of the existence of the heaven-supporting ancestor, so Yizong's talent was overestimated even more. Simultaneously, on the edge of the continent, above the rolling thunderclouds, a man in black clothes advanced against the wind. His face was stern with sharp eyebrows and eyes. His right hand held an ancient cyan tower that continuously burst forth with rainbow light, battering the sea of clouds. He was Yizong. Chapter 563. The dominant ancestor gazing at the distant and majestic supreme sect, Yizong's eyes brimmed with nostalgia as he murmured to himself, "I've finally come back. Compared to before, it indeed looks more like a holy land of the human world." A weathered voice emerged from the ancient azure tower. "Regarding the supreme sect, I too am quite interested. What kind of sect is it that could attract the protection of supporting Dao Sword Venerable?" "Heaven-supporting ancestor," Yizong replied, "but the supporting Dao Sword Venerable has already left the supreme sect. Perhaps even he has grown tired of it." He had visited the heaven repairing platform and felt the vast sword intent of the supporting Dao Sword Venerable. Thus, he had long been an admirer of the Venerable. "Everything should have a limit. Do not be too extreme," heaven-supporting ancestor said with emphasis. Yizong did not reply, his eyes only growing more complex. He recalled the scene before he left the supreme sect, arguing with his master in the Third Medicine Valley, insisting he hadn't harmed his fellow disciples. Even though his senior sister testified for him, their master remained unconvinced. To appease the rage within the sect, his master had him leave the supreme sect first. After his departure, his sister was murdered. She was his only kin, whom he swore to protect in front of their parents' tombstones. Knowledgeable of this truth, he felt as though the sky had collapsed. He sought justice from his master but was stone-walled, and to this day, that vengeance had not been claimed. He hated his master for not taking a stand for him, and he hated the supreme sect even more. Although it was called a holy land, it was really dominated by influential families, and without a powerful backing, it was hard to gain a foothold. This time, he was determined to demand justice. After obtaining justice, he planned to leave far behind, venturing into a vaster world, never to return in this lifetime. Wuxia world. Sight Wuxia world. Sight. Of course, there was another thought in his mind. That was to see his senior sister one more time. Thinking of his senior sister, the chill in his eyes eased. "How dare you, Yizong? As a disciple of the supreme sect, do you truly intend to betray your own sect?" A majestic voice rang out, thunderous and filled with divine might. Yizong did not reply. Instead, quickening his pace, his aura suddenly burst forth. Mana gathered behind him, forming a dharma aspect of towering mountains and rivers, sun and moon shining brightly, and vast rivers rushing, from which the essence of heaven and earth gushed out. The clouds ahead were pierced through as cultivators of the supreme sect, armed with magical treasures, rushed out, rapidly surrounding Yizong, ready for battle. Rumble. The outer sect city shook, and Guan watched as the city-protecting array rose. Pedestrians on the streets hurried along, disturbed by Yizong's arrival. Guan turned and headed toward the heaven-repairing platform. He could foresee that Yizong would not bring disaster to the supreme sect. Once Yizong met Longqing and they, as master and disciple, broke ties, Yizong would completely sever his karma and then truly embark on his own path in life. The primordial chaos body was no simple matter. A notch above Zhu Zai's primordial cause and effect body. Of course, that was just the physique. The potential of a cultivator still depended on their comprehension. The feud between Yizong and Longqing amused Guan, but he did not support either of their perspectives. Suddenly, he thought of Ji Xiaoyu, who had also severed her familial ties. Such were the matters of the human world, always with its imperfections. Ji Xiaoyu had long returned to the yin-yang immortal domain, which was not part of the great heaven and earth, and remained in the cosmic void of the universe. Guan occasionally kept an eye on Ji Xiaoyu, who was striving to reach the Dao fruit realm. Despite the news of the reshaping of the Great Thousand World, Ji Xiaoyu had no intention of coming back to see Guan and could hear her aspirations. She wanted to reach the same realm as Guan before she would meet him again. Naturally, he respected her competitive spirit. For the human world, 10,000 years was a long time, but for Ji Xiaoyu, especially in seclusion, it felt short, so she did not feel it had been long since she saw Guan. Thinking of Ji Xiaoyu, Guan then thought of Yilan. Having entered reincarnation for so long, Yilan had not yet reincarnated in the celestial spirit great world. Guan decided to spend time looking for her next. With the Tao Destruction Destiny Seal, as a Tai Ching Golden Immortal, finding Yilan should not be difficult for Guan. As Guan thought this, he walked down one street after another. He finally arrived in front of the Heaven Repairing Platform. The Heaven Repairing Platform maintained its original appearance, with many figures on it. Zhua Yijian was still guarding the heaven-splitting axe, sitting cross-legged in mid-air, exuding a celestial demeanor. The pressure of the immortal path ultimate treasure enveloped Outer Sect City, but Zhua Yijian kept his eyes closed, an air of calmness that would not change even if the heavens fell. Looking at Zhua Yijian, Guan felt reassured. Zhua Yijian was definitely the most devoted person to him. Even more devout than profound mysterious Zhenren from the Mountain God Temple. Unless his family faced trouble, he had guarded the Heaven Repairing Platform for over 20,000 years, protecting the honor of supporting Dao's sword venerable. Guan also had not treated him unfairly, occasionally using Dao intent to guide him in sword enlightenment. Now, Zhua Yijian was also in the loose immortal realm. His sword Dao achievement not much less than Chen Chuan. Once the inheritance of the heaven-splitting axe was handed over, Guan would give Zhua Yijian a chance to follow him. Guan had steeds, disciples, and demon pets, but he lacked a sword attendant by his side. At this moment, a figure appeared out of nowhere in front of the heaven-splitting axe, and the disciples who were queuing up were about to verbally abuse the newcomer, but upon recognizing who it was, they hastily bent over to salute. The visitor was none other than the sect leader of the supreme sect, Long Qing. Long Qing paid no attention to the surrounding disciples. He gazed at the heaven-splitting axe, remaining silent. Zhua Yijian was still meditating mid-air. He glanced at Long Qing and then closed his eyes again. With a pat on the shoulder from the supporting Dao sword venerable and inheriting the sword intent, Zhua Yijian held a very high status in the supreme sect. Even when facing Long Qing, he could act as a senior, and Long Qing did indeed respect him. Boom, boom, boom. The distant rumbling of thunder grew louder and louder. The oppression belonging to the immortal path ultimate treasure was approaching. Candlestar appeared out of nowhere beside Long Qing and said solemnly, "Behind him, there is someone with a higher cultivation level than me. The Supreme Sect cannot stop him. He is the foremost cultivator of the Supreme Sect, and below him, there is a huge gap in cultivation level." Hearing his words, Long Qing's expression did not change. Candlestar wanted to say more, but he suddenly turned his head. The city-protecting array of the Outer Sect City shattered abruptly, and a rainbow light came crashing down from the sky, forcing Candlestar to raise his palm and protect Long Qing and the surrounding disciples with his own mana. As the light dissipated and the Jin Qi overflowed, Yi Tsong revealed himself, with cracks appearing on the platform under his feet and stones flying. Zhua Yijian opened his eyes. His gaze fell on the spot beneath Yi Tsong's feet, his sword brows furrowing tightly. Holding a green ancient tower, Yi Tsong ignored Candlestar. His gaze fell on Long Qing's back, and he said, "Master, long time no see." Long Qing slowly turned around. Facing his former disciple, his expression was calm, devoid of any emotion. Their eyes met, each seeing only the other. "What do you want?" Long Qing asked. Yi Tsong responded, "I seek justice. I want you, master, to publicly condemn the Cui family and avenge my sister." Long Qing said nothing, only quietly looked at him. Yi Tsong slightly tilted his chin upward, a cold light twinkling in his eyes. He said with a sneer, "It seems that after 9,000 years, the status of the Cui family in the Supreme Sect has risen ever higher. Master, you also can't bear to deal with them, can you?" Long Qing stared at him and said, "The one who murdered your sister was already executed. Do you really want the entire Cui family to join your sister in death? Do you know how many people are in the Cui family, and what the Supreme Sect would lose without them?" Yi Tsong stepped forward. The green ancient tower shone with a dazzling light. A strong wind rose from the ground, and his black robe fluttered intensely, enhancing the oppressive force he displayed. He is dead, but my sister, as a disciple of the Supreme Sect, died quietly. Is that really right? Moreover, that person was just a pawn. Who truly wanted to harm my sister, Master? Do you really not know? Yi Tsong pressed aggressively, the aura of the green ancient tower making the heaven-repairing platform tremble. Candlestar couldn't help but yell out. Enough! That member of the Chui family has long left the Supreme Sect. Do you expect the Supreme Sect to spend manpower to hunt him down? How vast is the world for your sister? How much should the Supreme Sect have to sacrifice for you to be satisfied? The Chui family allowed the mastermind to escape and had the murderer executed. The Supreme Sect indeed had no way to deal with them, especially since the Chui family helped develop the sect and now counted among the top 3 families within the sect. Candlestar often encountered such contradictions. What he could do was to have the murderer pay with his life, but it was impossible to completely eradicate them because the development of power needed to consider benefits. With this loud yell, the aura of profound Yuan-free immortal surged toward Yi Tsong, making him slide backward. A phantom jumped out from the green ancient tower. This was an old Taoist with white hair. The heaven-supporting ancestor hovered in the air, looking down at Candlestar and said, "Fellow Taoist, you should not belong to this great thousand world. Why are you so stubborn about the rules of the human world? If you consider interests, do you think it is worth offending me and a primordial chaos body for a family that oppresses the weak?" Seeing him appear, Candlestar's expression darkened and he said, "I want to ask you too, with your high level of Tao practice, do you really think his stubborn nature won't bring him great disaster?" The heaven-supporting ancestor had no expression on his face and said, "This is his only request in this life, and as his teacher, I must help him. In the human world, a day as a teacher, a lifelong father. In the great thousand world, a teacher should protect his disciple more. I do not care what happens to him in the future. I just want to support him now." Hearing these words, Long Qing's expression changed. Zhua Yijian looked at the heaven-supporting ancestor. He could feel the other's strength, but he was not concerned. The supporting Dao sword venerable had left many years ago, but Zhua Yijian always felt that the old man was still watching over the Supreme Sect. As long as the sword intent of the heaven-repairing platform did not dissipate, Zhua Yijian believed the Supreme Sect could not possibly fall. Yi Tsong, hearing the words of the heaven-supporting ancestor, felt a deep gratitude but did not show it on his face. He looked at Long Qing, his eyes filled with disappointment. Once, he had respected this master so much that he even considered him a father. The strong stance of the heaven-supporting ancestor put great pressure on Candlestar. He could only look to Long Qing. "Say something. If it comes to a fight, I will risk my life to assist you. This guy is just a remnant soul. He cannot afford it," Candlestar said solemnly. Seeing the disappointment in Yi Tsong's eyes, Long Qing felt a bit confused. Had he really made a mistake? In his view, the Supreme Sect was the legacy left by his teacher and LV Batian. He had to protect it well, so in his heart, the Supreme Sect was more important than his progeny and disciples. The heaven-supporting ancestor looked at Long Qing and said, "Destroying the Chui family would be as easy as flipping my hand, but what my disciple wants is your stance, Dragon Gate Master. Could it be that you want to involve the entire Supreme Sect because of past mistakes?" Before you left the Supreme Sect, did you get less cultivation resources than I did? Despite conflicts with that disciple from the Chui family, you both vied for the same opportunity. He died. Wouldn't the Chui family think of you? Isn't it because of your lack of foresight? This handsome man was Long Qing's son, Long Tang, and he spoke with the fierce momentum of a wild beast. He stared intently at Yi Tsong and said, "All you know is hatred, but what about the grace the Supreme Sect has shown you? Because of hatred towards one person, one family, you would involve the entire sect? Do you really think you are without guilt? Since you hold your sister in such high regard, why didn't you consider her when you were fighting? Did you think we are obligated to guard your sister for life, watching over her every moment?" These successive interrogations made Yi Tsong furrow his brows. Heaven-supporting ancestor did not speak further. He had no personal grievance with the Supreme Sect. He wanted to see how Yi Tsong would respond. In his view, Yi Tsong should experience such a confrontation and come to a clear understanding of himself. The people who have been kind to you, you only demand more. By what right do you act this way? Long Tang said forcefully, and even though heaven-supporting ancestor and immortal path ultimate treasure were mighty, he showed no fear, and even took a step forward while speaking. Seeing Long Ting's stance, Candle Star revealed a smile on his face. Even though Yi Tsong had cultivated the primordial chaos body, in Candle Star's eyes, he still didn't measure up to Long Ting. Feel it's unfair? When Yi Tsong was the favored one by Long Qing, did Yi Tsong ever consider how Long Ting felt being neglected? Granted, Long Qing was somewhat biased in his manner and relationships. The closer they were, the more he may have taken them for granted, mainly because his energy and resources were limited. In his view, there was no need to make a big effort to win over his own children. Perhaps, due to a lifetime of drifting from one life to the next, he cared deeply about how outsiders felt under his command. Candle Star didn't think such a fault was a big deal. The present issue wasn't about what Long Qing did wrong. It was that he wasn't as strong as Heaven-supporting Ancestor. If he was stronger, would he have allowed Heaven-supporting Ancestor such insolence? More and more people appeared on the heaven-repairing platform, persuading Yi Tsong, who had once shown peerless talent. It was too much of a pity for such a genius to become the supreme sect's enemy, especially when the conflict could be resolved. Why go to such lengths to settle the score? Yi Tsong watched his former sect friends and teachers, feeling somewhat swayed in his heart. But whenever he thought of his sister's death, he just couldn't let go. The very reason he had left the supreme sect with peace of mind was his belief that Master would take care of his sister. But instead of disciplining the Cui family, Master had let them kill his sister. Why should he? His master was the sect leader. Yi Tsong's anger and intent to kill burst forth in his heart, and the more people tried to persuade him, the more he hated. From the beginning to the end, the Cui family never showed up, and the supreme sect did not attempt to capture them. It was as if the Cui family were the victims. Master! Yi Tsong's voice was deep, drowning out all other noises between heaven and earth. Heaven-supporting Ancestor and Long Qing both turned to look at him. Both were his masters, but one protected him while the other stood on the opposing side. Zhua Yijian sensed Yi Tsong's murderous aura and his expression shifted. He was about to stand up when suddenly, his gaze caught a figure, and he widened his eyes in excitement. He did not exclaim aloud but quickly repressed his emotions. Heaven-supporting Ancestor said expressionlessly, "Speak whatever you wish to do, your master will support you." As his words fell, the temperature around plummeted. The ancient green tower constantly burst forth with rainbow light, casting clarity on everyone's faces. Yi Tsong took a deep breath and said, "Kill. Kill until. Young man, watch your words. Some things can't be taken back," one said. A voice suddenly came from behind, and in an instant, Heaven-supporting Ancestor, who was floating in mid-air, felt a hand press on his shoulder, and he found himself crashing down onto the heaven-repairing platform. Having become a remnant soul, Heaven-supporting Ancestor had almost forgotten what it felt like to physically fall. He instinctively turned his head and saw a figure standing behind him, one hand resting on his shoulder. Everyone was frightened by Gu An's sudden appearance, including Yi Tsong, whose eyelids twitched wildly. That someone had captured the mighty Heaven-supporting Ancestor so easily. Upon seeing Guan, Long Qing felt relieved, but then, thinking of something, his face showed a shade of shame. An elder who had lived through the last era widened his eyes in disbelief. Just as he was about to speak, he seemed to remember something and swallowed his words. It was also Candlestar's first time seeing Guan, but Gu An's figure felt familiar to him. Wait, wasn't this the mysterious figure who had suppressed the celestial spirit god? Candlestar instinctively glanced at Long Qing, and seeing his expression, felt even more certain about his guess. He breathed a sigh of relief while also feeling a bit nervous. This was the terrifying existence who had effortlessly suppressed the celestial spirit god. He couldn't fathom what such a being might be thinking. Heaven-supporting Ancestor was unable to move. He couldn't even retract his immortal path ultimate treasure. Waves of shock surged in his heart. Guan ignored Heaven-supporting Ancestor beneath his hand and looked at Yi Tsong, saying, "Ultimately, your enemies are not here. Many things can be mended. You can avenge the dead, but you should also cherish the living." Yi Tsong saw Heaven-supporting Ancestor pressed to the ground, unable to even turn around to look at him, and this filled him with fear. Guan looked so young but gave off an unfathomable aura. He nervously asked, "And who are you?" He had voiced the question on everyone's mind. Afraid that Yi Tsong might offend Guan, Long Qing hastily barked, Aren't you going to kneel and kowtow to your ancestor? Ancestor? Yi Tsong stood there stunned, along with Long Tang, Long Ye, and the other members of the Long family. This person was Long Qing's master? Wait, wasn't Long Qing's master? More and more people started to realize this point. Some gasped, while others trembled and knelt straight on the ground. Yi Tsong also came to the realization of Gu An's identity, his mind buzzing. He stood still, unsure of what to do. Gu An's left hand lifted, and with a wave through the air, a man appeared beneath his hand, his shoulder grasped by Gu An. This man was handsomely dressed, his face handsome, but it carried a hint of malevolence. His expression was baffled, obviously startled by the sudden turn of events. When he saw Yi Tsong, his face greatly changed. Yi Tsong's notoriety spread far and wide, and he had always dreaded encountering Yi Tsong. Upon seeing him, Yi Tsong's eyes instantly reddened, his murderous intent irrepressible. You! Cui Xianlin had just opened his mouth when he was suppressed by a force. Guan couldn't be bothered to listen to their dispute. Through causal calculations, he could understand the truth. Cui Xianlin's brother fancied Long Ye, but Long Ye was close to Yi Tsong, leading to Cui Xianlin's brother warning Yi Tsong several times in private, which resulted in a grudge between the two men. The reason Cui Xianlin's brother died was that he attacked Yi Tsong and, in a twist of fate, was killed by a demon beast. After Yi Tsong left, Cui Xianlin returned to Supreme Sect only to discover his brother's death. He wanted Yi Tsong to suffer the same pain. The Cui family was also in distress. They were wary of Long Qing and Candlestar. Otherwise, they would not have sent Cui Xianlin away. Whether it was the Cui family or Yi Tsong, both paid a price. Supreme Sect had also discussed this matter with the Cui family, and ultimately, it was left in the past. But the Cui family never dared let Cui Xianlin return due to Candlestar's domineering actions. Guan stared at Yi Tsong and said, "You're avenging your sister, and your master helps you, that's all fine. But you must also allow your master's ancestor to help him. What do you think?" Yi Tsong, overwhelmed, was even more unsure of what to do. The thought that the person before him was the myth of Supreme Sect threw his mind into turmoil. Long Qing quickly approached Guan and said, "Master, Kanger is just a bit impulsive. It's all my fault as his master." He was worried that Guan was angry, always believing that Supreme Sect was Gu An's soft spot, which was why he valued the sect so highly. Guan looked towards Long Qing with a calm gaze and said, "You've disappointed me." At those words, Long Qing's complexion drastically changed, and unable to maintain the air of a sect leader, he knelt down anxiously. Seeing the sect leader kneel, all Supreme Sect cultivators knelt in unison, Zhou Yijian included. Chapter 565, Righteous Tao, Eternal Life. Outer Sect City fell into silence. The cultivators who came to support beheld the magnificent scene on the heaven-repairing platform and were utterly astounded, slowing their flying speed, their eyes fixed on Long Qing. The sect leader knelt? When they turned their gazes towards Guan, they couldn't see his true face, even feeling a sense of dizziness. Seeing his master speaking on his behalf, Yi Tsong also came back to his senses. Yes, if he could seek the help of heaven-supporting ancestor, why couldn't his ancestor help his master? The moment he saw Cui Xianlin, Yi Tsong actually began to let go. It was only because the dead could not be brought back to life that he blamed others. It was his own fault, after all. He had not protected his sister well. Who else could he blame? Yi Tsong took a deep breath and facing Guan, he opened his mouth to say, "Thank you, ancestor, for capturing my enemy for me. I should avenge myself, please. Do not be disappointed in my master." He, as the sect leader, was indeed helpless, and I, as his disciple, failed to resolve his worries and constantly caused him trouble. It is I who have let him down. When Long Qing knelt down for him, his hatred for Long Qing completely dissipated. Recalling what Long Tang had said, he felt utterly ashamed. Now, he only wanted to kill Cui Xianlin and then leave. Guan looked at him and said, "Running away won't solve the problem. You've caused so much trouble for the Supreme Sect. Do you think you can just walk away?" Wuxia world. Sighed after hearing this, Yi Tsong opened his mouth but didn't know how to respond to that question. Though he had not intentionally killed anyone, his forceful actions along the way had undoubtedly caused immeasurable losses to the Supreme Sect. After taking revenge, Have a chat alone with your master. Let him decide your fate. Having said that, Guan pushed Cui Xianlin, whose mana had already been restrained, towards Yi Tsong. Now as weak as a mortal, once Cui Xianlin regained his freedom, he immediately ran towards the distance. However, Yi Tsong appeared out of nowhere in front of him, grabbed him by the throat, and lifted him high up. As Guan turned and walked away, he dropped a comment, "Zhuo Yijian, come with me." Hearing this, Zhuo Yijian became excited and hurriedly followed Guan's steps. Just a few steps away, the two disappeared from the heaven-repairing platform. With Guan gone, Yi Tsong could no longer restrain his desire to kill. "Cui Xianlin, give me back my sister's life." Yi Tsong roared with all his might, venting thousands of years of accumulated hatred and pain. His voice echoed between heaven and earth. Countless cultivators of the supreme sect looked up, their minds shaken as they gazed at the figure on the heaven-repairing platform. What shook them was not Yi Tsong, but the person whom the sect leader had knelt before. Who in the world was he? Not only did he make the sect leader kneel, but he also made Yi Tsong let go of his hatred towards the supreme sect. Such a figure made the cultivators of the supreme sect's imagination run wild. The dark clouds in the sky gradually dispersed, and the sunlight poured down, brightening Third Medicine Valley. Under an old tree, after Zhuo Yijian finished pouring tea for Guan, he sat down respectfully, facing Guan with a mix of anticipation and nervousness in his heart. Such a big event had happened, and Guan calling him away meant Guan had come specifically for him. Was he going to accept him as a disciple, or was he going to ask him to give up guarding the heaven-repairing platform? 2,000 years had passed. Too many people, including his son, had persuaded him to give up. He wavered at times but still persevered. Only he knew how monotonous a life lasting thousands of years could be. Hearing Zhuo Yijian's inner thoughts, Guan laughed and said, "Don't be nervous. Although your guarding of the heaven-repairing platform doesn't hold special significance for me, your sincerity has touched me." Zhuo Yijian, flustered, let out an embarrassed smile. Guan continued with a smile, "I offer you two choices. One is to be my sword attendant, following me forever, and the other is to teach you the swordsmanship that leads to the peak of the world." "I wish to follow you," Zhuo Yijian answered without hesitation. Guan looked at him and reminded, "Following me, can you forsake your family?" Zhuo Yijian said firmly, "I have essentially already forsaken them. I have done all I could to give them everything I could. Choosing to follow you is my choice for immortal cultivation. I believe that by following you, I can achieve true immortality." He expressed his needs without concealment. Such an attitude made Guan appreciate him even more. Guan smiled and said, "Once someone receives the legacy of the heaven-splitting axe, you can come to Wuxia." "Wuxia? What place is that?" Zhuo Yijian asked eagerly, suppressing his excitement. "That is my Taoist field." Having said that, Guan began to inquire about the development of the supreme sect over the years. He was actually aware of it already, but he wanted to understand the supreme sect from the mouths of its cultivators. Zhuo Yijian hesitated for a moment, then decided to tell the truth. Currently, the supreme sect has already become a holy land, still the leader of the righteous Tao. As the sect has grown, internal conflicts are inevitable. The sect leader often secludes himself for cultivation, with the Grand Elder Candlestar overseeing the power, and the Grand Elder has been doing quite well. Zhuo Yijian spoke in detail, while Guan listened attentively. After a long while, Long Qing brought Yi Tsong back to Third Medicine Valley. From a distance, they saw Zhuo Yijian sitting under a tree, stupidly smiling at a teapot on the table as if possessed. Long Qing hesitated for a moment but still walked towards Zhuo Yijian. Yi Tsong subconsciously looked around, searching for his ancestor. After taking revenge and reflecting on his ancestor's power, he felt shocked. He had thought heaven-supporting ancestor was the strongest, but heaven-supporting ancestor was powerless before his ancestor. This incident also awakened him. If he hadn't met his ancestor that day, he might have already died. He began to admire and aspire after his ancestor, a person so powerful yet not overbearing, fair, the kind of person he wanted to become. Seeing Long Qing and his disciple approaching, Zhuo Yijian composed himself, resuming his inscrutable demeanor. Long Qing approached him and bowed, asking, "Senior, where has my master gone? Has he left any instructions?" Zhuo Yijian stood up and said, "As for where he has gone off to, I can't investigate that, and he didn't leave any message. After hearing this, Longqing frowned. Zhua Yijian spoke with a meaningful tone. Sect leader, the next time you visit the heaven repairing platform, don't just focus on the heaven-splitting axe. Actually, the most important thing on the heaven repairing platform isn't the legacy, nor the sword intent, but the 2 words of righteous Tao he left behind. What is the righteous Tao? Different people have different understandings, but I think what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. The righteous Tao should lead the moral climate of the human world. Before the sound of his voice faded, Zhua Yijian had already disappeared from the spot. After listening, Longqing fell into silence. Yizong, looking at Longqing's back, his eyes full of shame. After being scolded and looking back at his master's actions, he suddenly felt that being a master was the hardest. Yizong began to examine his own heart. What kind of person was he really? Did he deserve the 2 words righteous Tao? Heaven-supporting ancestor taught him that if one does not think for oneself, heaven and earth will annihilate them. Immortal cultivation is about striving, but seeing the ancestor today, he suddenly felt that cultivators must still have some convictions and principles. In thousands of years, he had seen countless powerhouses, but in terms of demeanor, no one could compare to his ancestor. The ancestor had only said a few words, but now that he thought back, each word was filled with deep meaning. Under the old tree, Longqing and Yizong, each harboring their own thoughts, were reflecting on their own actions and pasts. Guan returned to the Taoist field of the beginningless and resumed his uneventful lifestyle, not caring about how Longqing would deal with Yizong. Even if the supreme sect were to be destroyed, he didn't want to bother. At the age of 2, the Jinlan Immortal Mansion suffered an attack from space demons. Your eyes were gouged out, and misfortune was cast upon you. The powers in the mansion deduced that you could not live past 20 years. Unwilling to accept this fate, guided by the pavilion master, your parents decided to take you to Ling Mountain. What a tough start. Couldn't live past 20? Guan immediately tensed up. From misty immortal court to Ling Mountain, could Eternal Live's parents reach it within 20 years? He began to look forward to Eternal Live's ability to activate lifespan evolution, perhaps to break free from fate. Chapter 566. The Path of the Buddha Emperor, Bodhi Golden Body. At 3 years old, your parents encountered an attack by the star demon race in the chaotic immortal Star River. Your mother was sacrificed, and your severely injured father took you and escaped into a space-time vortex. At 4 years old, despite his injuries, your father continued to take you toward Ling Mountain, and on the path of the Great Tao, he was attacked by a great power cultivator and perished, his existence erased. You were taken by this great power cultivator to a little world, where he accepted you as his disciple and imparted the method of cultivating immortality to you. Is this misfortune? They died so quickly. Guan felt something was off. Why did every lifespan reincarnation start so tragically? Could it be that Heavenly Tao was targeting him? At 6 years old, you successfully achieved foundation establishment, learned your master was named Profound Misfortune Ancestor, and despite being blind, you did not know your father was killed by the Profound Misfortune Ancestor. You were grateful for the Profound Misfortune Ancestor's life-saving grace and upbringing. At 12 years old, under the help of the Profound Misfortune Ancestor, you condensed your golden core. The Profound Misfortune Ancestor used his own mana to coalesce your eyes, and you regained your sight, escalating your gratitude toward your master to another level. At 16, the Profound Misfortune Ancestor summoned you, offering you 2 paths of cultivation. One was the Taoist Emperor path, chasing the Emperor's destiny to become a Taoist Emperor. The other was the path of eternal life, pursuing an eternal lifespan to live as long as Heavenly Tao itself. You were caught in hesitation. How would you choose? Such quick decision-making. Seeing to live as long as Heavenly Tao itself, Guan instinctively resisted. Having suffered so much, he had no fondness for Heavenly Tao and believed his cultivation level should not rely on Heavenly Tao. You chose the Taoist Emperor path, and the Profound Misfortune Ancestor showed a relieved smile, beginning to impart the Tao Profound skill to you. Wuxia world. Sight at 18, you fell into demonic possession during your cultivation, causing the Profound Misfortune Ancestor to examine your body and his face to drastically change. You were forced to reveal your early experiences, prompting the Profound Misfortune Ancestor to decide to take you to Ling Mountain in place of your parents. At 19, the profound misfortune ancestor took you to Ling Mountain. You entered the Great Layin Temple, met the celestial Buddhas, and the profound misfortune ancestor requested the celestial Buddha to save you. The celestial Buddha stated that eliminating your misfortune required years of Buddhist spell chanting, and you had to first join Ling Mountain. At the age of 9100, you attained enlightenment under the Bodhi sacred tree. The Black Profound Emperor suddenly attacked. Just as he was about to reach you, the celestial Buddha appeared and annihilated him. You inquired about the origins of the Black Profound Emperor, and after deliberation, the celestial Buddha said it was unpredictable, then left. You always felt there was some connection between the Black Profound Emperor and yourself, and you began to comprehend the way of cause and effect. At the age of 9234, you entered the wandering immortal realm, and after a breakthrough, you felt your connection with the immortal Emperor's eye. You could trace the immortal Emperor's eye, recalling your early experiences. If not for the immortal Emperor's eye being taken and cursed with misfortune, your parents would not have died. You found the celestial Buddha, proposed your idea of seeking revenge, but the celestial Buddha forbade it, telling you to reach the Dao fruit realm before leaving Ling Mountain. Seeing the celestial Buddha block Yongxing, Guan breathed a sigh of relief. A mere wandering immortal daring to seek revenge? Still ahead were various prompts about cultivation. Xianxia, sitting in front of the great cauldron, saw that Guan was not reading, but daydreaming, and could not help asking, "Guan, did you just have a breakthrough?" Guan glanced at her and asked, "Do you think my current realm is something I can easily break through? I've just gained new insights into the great Tao." He also would keep secrets from those around him. It was a benign lie. The path of cultivating immortality was filled with bizarre methods, and even those close could unintentionally leak his information. Xianxia asked, "Just now when I was focused on the scene inside the cauldron, I saw a golden Buddha enduring the flames tempering. What do you think this signifies?" "A golden Buddha?" Guan grew curious. Just as his reincarnation body had forged the Bodhi golden body, Xianxia saw a golden Buddha. Clearly there was some connection. "Continue to feel it, and when you can't see it anymore, discuss it with me in detail," Guan proposed thoughtfully. Xianxia nodded and then returned her gaze to the great cauldron. Guan continued to pay attention to the reincarnation prompts. At the age of 57,046, you succeeded in crossing the tribulation and became a divine thought true immortal. At the age of 57,389, you mastered the great celestial thunder spell. The celestial Buddha was deeply pleased and bestowed upon you the precious red dust Buddha beads of Ling Mountain. At the age of 68,507, you succeeded in crossing the tribulation and became a free immortal. You awakened the divine skills of the immortal Emperor's eye and eagerly wished to reclaim the immortal Emperor's eye. At the age of 89,002, you succeeded in crossing the tribulation and became a Taoist Xianxia immortal. You began to solidify your cultivation level. At the age of 90,000, the celestial Buddha agreed for you to leave Ling Mountain, and before saying goodbye, he entrusted you with a task to take a disciple from the misty immortal court, saying they would certainly agree. You left Ling Mountain with doubts. At the age of 90,134, you encountered a group of cultivators ascending to Yellow Heaven. They were entangled by evil spirits. You helped them, and knowing you were heading in the same direction, the group of cultivators decided to travel with you. Seeing others follow, Guan knew trouble was coming. Afterward, he frequently encountered problems, but Guan never faced a choice. Perhaps these troubles posed no threat to Yongxing. At the age of 90,152, you ventured into a cosmic domain, and suddenly, great Tao true fire emerged from all directions submerging you. You couldn't escape the universe, only able to resist with your mana. The great Tao true fire grew stronger, continuously engulfing people. You protected the living with the red dust Buddha beads, while you yourself endured using the Bodhi golden body. At the age of 90,153, your red dust Buddha beads were refined. The protected cultivators all were refined, leaving only you relying on the Bodhi golden body to desperately endure. Suddenly, a figure came from the deep darkness, self-proclaimed as the profound demon emperor. You sensed the presence of the immortal emperor's eye on him, knowing he was the one who took your eye, and thinking of your parents' tragic death. You attacked in rage. Due to the huge gap in cultivation level, you were no match for the profound demon emperor. Just as he was about to annihilate you, a golden palm shattered the universe and repelled the profound demon emperor. You turned back and recognized it as your teacher, the celestial Buddha's hand. No matter how you called to the celestial Buddha, he did not respond to you, and you could only leave this shattered universe. The profound demon emperor hopes you would take up the legacy of your immortal emperor's eye's predecessor, Stealing Heaven Emperor, reunite the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect, and rebel against the reign of the celestial court. You hesitated whether to become the hierarch of the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect. How did it circle back to the celestial court again? What role does the celestial court exactly play in the vast world of the great Tao? Guan immediately made a choice to deflect the sharp edge. You refused to become the hierarch of the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect. The profound demon emperor wasn't mad but returned the immortal emperor's eye to you and informed you that after saving you, Fairy Yaoxian was counteracted by the Tao rules, fell into the reincarnation abyss, condemned to never transcend again. You couldn't find her again. You didn't believe it, and you secretly swore to find Fairy Yaoxian. At the age of 101,006,351, you fully integrated the immortal emperor's eye, using its tyrannical divine skills to restore your Bodhi golden body and all Tao practice. Your cultivation level even increased a bit. You began venturing into the 3,000 great worlds, searching for Fairy Yaoxian. The profound demon emperor chose to follow you. No matter how much you refused, you couldn't send him away. Thereafter, eternal life began adventuring, and new locations continued to unlock in the prompts. During the adventures, conflicts inevitably arose, and Guan frequently faced decisions closely related to life and death. If he encountered someone wanting to kill him, even if the opponent was defeated and begged for mercy, Guan showed no mercy. If he encountered creatures in peril and could save them, he let eternal life intervene to rescue. In this process, Guan could feel that eternal life's personality was shaping. This guy inherently had a very assertive nature. Later on, eternal life began to compel the profound demon emperor to do tasks for him. As the number of enemies he killed grew, eternal life's reputation spread far and wide. Eventually, someone discovered his immortal emperor's eye came from the Stealing Heaven Emperor, which suddenly made his reputation sinister. Ling Mountain even sent people to capture him, demanding he relinquish his cultivation level and give up the immortal emperor's eye. Eternal Life had a resolution in mind. He needed the power of the immortal emperor's eye to find Fairy Yaoxian and didn't give Guan a chance to choose, directly rejecting the demands of the Buddhist cultivators from Ling Mountain. A fight broke out, putting Eternal Life at odds with Ling Mountain. This path was inevitable after all. Guan looked at the prompt, sighing internally. At the same time, he was curious about the evil deeds Stealing Heaven Emperor had committed that made Ling Mountain directly wary of Eternal Life. The Emperor of Eternal Life would refresh the peak of lifespan reincarnation, and Guan looked forward to seeing how far he could go. The flow of reincarnation prompts swiftly propelled the time of reincarnation forward. At the age of tens of millions, the Emperor of Eternal Life achieved the status of heaven-balancing golden immortal, and chose to become the sect hierarch of the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect under the instigation of the profound demon emperor to develop the sect's power and to help him search for the whereabouts of Fairy Yaoxian. At the age of over 50 million, the Emperor of Eternal Life condensed the destiny of the Great Tao and became a Tai Ching Golden Immortal. In the obscurity of it all, every Taoist emperor could see his silhouette after the breakthrough. From then on, the Emperor of Eternal Life left an indelible mark on the path of becoming a Taoist emperor. But he was still not happy. He couldn't find Fairy Yaoxian. As time went on, his resolve did not waver but became even more obsessive. Once, the profound demon emperor advised him to let go of his obsession and focus on developing the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect. This provoked his fury, and he almost annihilated the profound demon emperor. Guan occasionally paid attention to Xianxia, whose mind seemed to be still in a dream, and more like in a nightmare. This made Guan think of the predicament Fairy Yaoxian might have encountered. He became more certain that Xianxia had some connection with Fairy Yaoxian. What that connection was, perhaps he would have an answer when this cycle of lifespan reincarnation ended. At the same time, he marveled at the power of lifespan reincarnation. It began to affect reality even before it ended. The prompts continued, and in the following years, the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect grew stronger. More and more individuals with great power came to serve the Emperor of Eternal Life, prompting Guan to think of the grandeur of Longzhan when he founded the Battle Court. Compared to the Battle Court, the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect clearly had a deeper foundation, though of course, it was unknown if the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect could compare with the Battle Court in Guan's own era. Millions of years later, the Emperor of Eternal Life grew tired of the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect and decided to search for Fairy Yaoxian on his own. Without the profound demon emperor accompanying him, the Emperor of Eternal Life rarely encountered battles, but in his interactions with others, there were always women who fell for him. Fortunately, Guan rejected them all on his behalf. At the age of 127, 74632, while you were contemplating the Tao in the boundless sea of Tao, you were attacked by the celestial punishment god. Despite the disparity in Tao practice, you still managed to repel him. Chapter 569. Battle Court Strikes. Invincible. When Guan was immersed in his reincarnation memories, spiritual energy from the Taoist field of the beginningless surged towards him, startling the disciples within. Xianxia was the first to be awakened. She turned her head to look at Guan, who was meditating with his eyes closed, her eyes brimming with curiosity. An Xian arrived first, followed by LV Xian, Chen Chuan, Celestial Demon Child, and others. Gradually, everyone gathered in the courtyard within the span of 5 breaths. When they realized the extraordinary phenomenon of the spiritual energy in the Taoist field originated from Guan, they all breathed a sigh of relief. What is Master doing? It looks like he's seeking enlightenment. The realm of our Master is so high, yet he can still experience sudden enlightenment. Perhaps his talent is greater than we thought. Nonsense, it's clear that our Master is a genius. How else could he have reached his current realm? Stop guessing and sit down quickly. Let's profoundly sense the Master's Tao. Everyone discussed in hushed tones, afraid of disturbing Guan. After being reminded by the blood prison great saint, everyone sat down to earnestly contemplate. The Taoist field of the beginningless fell into silence. The mountains and forests were beautiful, the sunlight was gentle, everything seemed so perfect. An hour later. Wuxia world. Sight Guan opened his eyes and saw that everyone was meditating within the courtyard. His expression didn't change. He just turned his gaze toward Shenzhen. Such a heavy obsession, Guan lamented inwardly. He had figured out the relationship between Shenzhen and Fairy Yaoxian. In fact, there was no actual relationship between the two. It was just that the Emperor of Eternal Life transferred Fairy Yaoxian's karma onto Shenzhen, hoping that the original self, namely Guan, could find Fairy Yaoxian through Shenzhen and rescue her. Fairy Yaoxian is a Taoist emperor with extraordinary talent. Even part of karma could change Shenzhen's destiny. Shenzhen was not initially chosen by the Emperor of Eternal Life, but was granted karma by him after meeting Guan. This was the act of the Emperor of Eternal Life after merging with the great cause and effect steel. He couldn't deduce where his original self was, so he could only utilize the power of the great cause and effect steel. He chose to self-destruct, also to make better use of the power of the great cause and effect steel. In the last moment before his will dispersed, he finally locked onto the celestial spirit great world of the future. He chose Shenzhen because, among the people Guan cared about, only Shenzhen had no one in her heart but Guan. The Emperor of Eternal Life believed that only such a relationship could compel Guan to go and save Fairy Yaoxian. Not only that, the Emperor of Eternal Life also left a mark within the great cause and effect steel as a way of repaying the original self in advance. Through this matter, Guan suddenly realized that Shenzhen's affection for him was indeed different. Although she said nothing, she had abandoned everything to follow him. When Shenzhen chose him, she did not know his true cultivation level. She simply did so because their aspirations and intentions concurred. Guan looked at Shenzhen and he too felt relieved. Shenzhen was not a replacement for anyone. She was still her own person, which was quite all right. As for the karma of the Emperor of Eternal Life, Guan would shoulder it. After all, he was the Emperor of Eternal Life. They were essentially the same person. One day, he would help the Emperor of Eternal Life find Fairy Yaoxian. With a thought, Guan's pupils transformed into a purplish gold hue, with flames faintly surging within. The Immortal Emperor's Eye. After inheriting the memories of the Emperor of Eternal Life, Guan suddenly mastered the Immortal Emperor's Eye. It's worth noting that his Immortal Emperor's Eye had no association with the Stealing Heaven Emperor, which was another of the Emperor of Eternal Life's methods. The Emperor of Eternal Life had obliterated Stealing Heaven Emperor's Immortal Emperor's Eye within the Great Cause and Effect Steal. The reason Guan could condense his own Immortal Emperor's Eye was because it was a skill that was cultivated, akin to a variation of divine powers, only it affected the bloodline and soul. The Emperor of Eternal Life had mastered the Immortal Emperor's Eye for hundreds of millions of years and had grasped its essence. This allowed Guan to directly cultivate the Immortal Emperor's Eye. It was a new Immortal Emperor's Eye without any karma. The Immortal Emperor's Eye was a great Tao creation, extremely difficult to cultivate, and different people could possess different mysteries. Now, Guan's mana was converging towards the Immortal Emperor's Eye, which would give rise to Immortal Emperor's Eye divine power unique to him. Guan spread out his Tao intent, immersing the others in the process of enlightenment, to prevent them from seeing the Immortal Emperor's Eye. The night sky was clear with the moon shining brightly and few stars. Inside the pagoda of Third Medicine Valley, which once belonged to Guan, Longqing and Yitsong sat opposite each other. They had been talking for several days, with Yitsong speaking and Longqing listening. After Yitsong had recounted his experiences of 9,000 years, he inhaled deeply and said, "Master, I've truly recognized my mistakes. I'm willing to accept punishment. Please discipline me according to the sect's rules." He had already killed Cui Xianlin, avenging his sister, and his vengeance was thus settled, and next, he needed to take responsibility for his own mistakes. When he forced his way into Supreme Sect, although he did not create a massacre, he caused many people to get hurt, bringing immeasurable losses to Supreme Sect. Longqing looked at Yitsong and asked, "If your teacher asked you to take on the responsibility of the Supreme Sect, would you be willing?" "What responsibility?" Yitsong asked in confusion. Longqing answered, "The responsibility of the sect leader." At these words, Yitsong suddenly stood up, astonished. "How can I be the sect leader? Besides, isn't Brother Long Teng the best candidate?" As he spoke these words, the image of Guan surfaced in his mind again. He wasn't clear on what he was thinking, only feeling that the matter was ridiculous. Longqing's gaze remained calm as he said, "You have finished recounting your past experiences. Now it is time for your teacher to talk about his own past." Yitsong's brows furrowed, and he could only suppress the confusion in his heart before sitting down. Longqing began to talk about the past of the Long clan and their deep-seated grievances and enmities with the battle court. Hearing that his master was from outer heaven, Yitsong was shocked but did not interrupt with questions and listened attentively. As time went on, Yitsong's expression continuously changed, and by the end, his mood had turned somber. He had not at all expected that his master carried so many burdens. Compared to his master, his own suffering was insignificant. Heaven-supporting ancestor flew out from within Yitsong, looking at Longqing with a complex expression. Seeing heaven-supporting ancestor appear, Longqing paid no heed and continued speaking about the burden of karma he carried. After a long while, Longqing finished recounting the past and looked at Yitsong, saying, "I am destined to die, but I do not wish my progeny to walk the same old path. I hope they stay away from Supreme Sect, away from the karma of the Long clan. My views diverge from those of the Grand Elder, so I wish to support you in becoming the next sect leader. Your talent is strong enough to become the strongest in Supreme Sect's future. But Kangar, your temperament still needs tempering. It's fine to be sharp, but in all things, leave some leeway, and do not be too extreme." His tone was still calm, revealing no emotion. Yitsong couldn't help but say, "Master, why must you bear such heavy karma? The battle court hasn't come yet, have they? Perhaps the battle court has already been annihilated, or maybe they can't even find the celestial spirit great world. It's impossible. The strength of the battle court is beyond your imagination. I had also heard of the Long clan before. I didn't expect that the Long clan still had surviving bloodlines. The battle court will certainly not let the Long clan off the hook." Heaven-supporting ancestor spoke with a hint of unease in his voice. Yitsong turned to heaven-supporting ancestor and asked with a frown, "Is the battle court truly unbeatable?" "I remember what I promised you, and once I fulfill what I promised, I might have the strength to confront the battle court." Heaven-supporting ancestor opened his mouth, but no words came out. He wanted to say that even if you complete that task, it would still be far from enough to shake the battle court. He was on his way to the imperial city of the dynasty to participate in the imperial examination. As he reached the highest point of the mountain path, the downhill path lay ahead. Stopping, he set down his bookcase and began to wipe off his sweat. He turned his head and looked back down the mountain path he came by, beholding the undulating expanse of forest that stretched out magnificently without end. A smile appeared on his face, and a feeling of exuberant pride welled up in his heart. Even if all my reading brings no rewards, having traveled thousands of miles, this life is still worth it, Xianxia said with heartfelt emotion, a proud and satisfied smile spreading across his handsome face. Suddenly, he caught sight of a little white fox in the grass below, and with a smile and a wave, he greeted it. "Little fox, we meet again. Can't you bear to part with me?" Upon hearing his words, Su Jin promptly emerged from the grass, hurried up the mountain, and affectionately rubbed against Xiang's trouser leg. Xiang was amused by her, then took out some of his rations and shared a piece with her. Guan stood atop the mountain, gazing down at the joyful scene of the reunion between the man and the fox. The stories of scholars and demons made Guan think of the ancient Wuxia literature, strange tales from a Chinese studio, from his past life. In the celestial spirit great world, romances between humans and demons are not uncommon, but they're not as fraught with complications. Few humans betray a demon and live to tell the tale, given the disparity in strength. In this life, the end of Xiang and Su Jin's story was destined to be a tragedy, but with Guan's intervention, anything could change. Guan was ready to use Su Jin as a test for the celestial spirit god. If the celestial spirit god still lacked compassion, then it would continue to languish in reincarnation. When Guan was no longer fearful of the celestial court, that would mark the moment of its annihilation. With time on his hands, Guan decided to get involved. He turned and strode toward the forest. In an instant, his attire transformed dramatically into that of a traveling martial hero, dust-covered yet retaining the demeanor of a gallant figure of the martial world. He wore a broad-brimmed hat and had the Xianhong sword strapped to his waist. Su Jin was nibbling on the pastry, her eyes constantly on Xiang. Staring at Xiang, she felt somewhat dazed. Thousands of years had passed, and he had become completely different. In her memory, Xiao Wu never had such presence, always wearing a worried look on his face. But the secret technique she practiced told her this man's soul was indeed Xiao Wu's. "In this life, I will definitely not let you suffer," Su Jin thought silently. Suddenly she turned her head. Her movement caught Xiang's attention, prompting him to look up as well. The nearby trees shook, and they saw a figure emerge from the woods. Guan said with a smile, "You should practice martial arts, not just study." Xiang stood up, holding the wine gourd and assumed a pose, executing a set of awkward fist technique, then said proudly, "Isn't it better to excel in both literature and martial arts? Why don't you teach me a set of swordsmanship? I think swords complement poetry." "All right, let's start now." "Really?" Hearing Guan's words, Xiang was overjoyed and immediately dragged Guan to practice swordsmanship. After beginning sword training, Guan was not all smiles and laughter with Xiang, occasionally correcting Xiang's posture with the hilt of the sword, which angered Su Jin. Once Xiang was able to accept her, she'd make Guan pay. As she thought this, she saw Guan applying more force, causing Xiang to cry out in pain, which further annoyed her. "If you're afraid of pain, you can give up." "No problem, I can hold on." Guan deliberately asked this, and upon hearing Xiang's reply, Su Jin could only bear with it. In the days that followed, every time they rested, Xiang would pester Guan to practice swordsmanship. In Su Jin's view, this sword Dao was quite ordinary. Practicing it was a waste of time. She planned to teach Xiang immortal cultivation later, since only by stepping onto the immortal path could he stay with her forever. Another half a year passed. Spring had just begun. Guan and Xiang arrived at the gates of the imperial city, and seeing the majestic gates, Bai Shang couldn't help but raise his arms and cheer. Su Jin, perched on his shoulder, squinted her fox-like eyes. She sensed a heavy demon chi. There were demons in the city. It seemed trouble was brewing. As expected of the imperial city under the sun of heaven's feet, majestic and imposing, the destination of the celestial mandate, this is the most prosperous place under heaven, said Bai Shang excitedly. Guan smiled and said, there are not only one dynasty in this world. To speak of the celestial mandate like this is a bit presumptuous. Bai Shang glanced at Guan and asked, have you been to other dynasties? No. Then let's first believe that this is the greatest city. Bai Shang lifted his bookcase and strode toward the imperial city. As he walked, he turned back to ask Guan the purpose of his visit to the imperial city. Guan was evasive, which made Su Jin even more vigilant. The crowd in front of the city gate was vast. They blended into it and quickly vanished from sight. At the same time, on the other side of the human world, Leah stood atop a mountain, looking down at the valley below, where weeds sprawled wildly with the faint outline of ancient attic buildings visible. This was Profound Valley, his first residence when he joined the Supreme Sect years ago. Leah gazed at the valley, looking lost in thought. A figure approached from behind him. It was Long Qing. Elderly, should I have someone tidy this up? Long Qing asked, weariness apparent in his features. With the impending assault from the battle court drawing near, his cultivation grew more arduous. He would not have left his practice had Leah not returned. Leah still wore his black garments, with stubble on his face and his hair casually tied, exuding the air of a wanderer from the martial world, not that of someone from immortal cultivation. No need, I'm just taking a glance. You don't need to accompany me especially. I will be leaving soon, Leah replied softly as he overlooked Profound Valley. In his eyes, the weeds in the valley disappeared, replaced by fields of medicinal herbs. He saw 3 young boys playing and frolicking. After hearing this, Long Qing nodded slightly and then turned to leave. He could tell that Leah was preoccupied, but he had no intention of prying. Could any worry be greater than his own life and death? As the millennia passed, Long Qing grew increasingly uneasy, always harboring the feeling of an impending calamity. After Long Qing departed, Leah remained in the same place, deep in thought. The divine exotic immortal spirit appeared on his shoulder and said, still looking, huh? The master isn't dead. He just left. I'm not worried about him. I just wanted to take one last look at this place before leaving. I might never return, Leah answered. Hearing this, the divine exotic immortal spirit cocked its head, asking in surprise, where exactly are you going? You still won't tell me? Ever since you practiced that miracle skill, I can't hear your inner thoughts. Living inside you, I feel like an outsider. Towards the end, its tone was of a complaint. I'm heading to outer heaven. Where exactly, I'm not sure. I want to follow Gu An's steps, and also look for Zhang Buku. Didn't you say that the power of the divine exotic realm master still exists? Maybe Zhang Buku is still alive. With that, Leah turned and looked up at the celestial vault. He leaped up, transforming into a beam of sword light, piercing the sky. As he soared further from the ground, the blue of the celestial vault darkened to black, stars emerged and quickly became resplendent. Suddenly, a powerful force of mana descended from above, and Li Ya's eyes narrowed as a sword materialized in front of him, its blade facing forward, forcefully severing this mana. Stop! A shout thundered from the heavens, causing Li Ya to slow down. He squinted and saw a man in silver armor, spear in hand, rapidly stopping thousands of feet above him. Without the celestial Tao order, you are not allowed to leave the celestial spirit great world, the silver armor man pronounced, looking down at Li Ya with a commanding voice. Li Ya scoffed and asked, the celestial Tao order? Since when does the celestial spirit great world have such a rule? Chapter 572. Disaster looms. If it had been before, Leah would have certainly barged into the Tao Court's blockade without hesitation, but now, upon hearing the silver armor man speak of an impending disaster, he couldn't help but calm down and ponder carefully. He had a clear memory of the great battle that took place 20,000 years ago, which clearly involved powerhouses from outer heaven. Leah gave the silver armor man a deep look and then turned to fly downwards. The silver armor man watched as Liya disappeared into the sea of clouds and then slowly ascended himself. Divine exotic immortal spirit sat on Liya's shoulder, teasing, "You've actually stopped being reckless, it feels quite unfamiliar to me." Liya snorted, "I'm not in any hurry to leave, and besides if the world is in trouble, I need to stay and protect the supreme sect." Xianxia the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. To reach this point in his life, aside from Guan's protection, the support he had received from the Supreme Sect was substantial, and even now, he still considered himself a disciple of the Supreme Sect. Divine exotic immortal spirit sighed, "You really have grown up. What's with that tone? You make it sound like you're talking to a junior." Liya immediately pulled Divine exotic immortal spirit down from his shoulder and vigorously kneaded him in his arms. A breeze blew over with the sea of clouds, and as Liya bantered with Divine exotic immortal spirit, he suddenly felt as if nothing had really changed after all. At dawn. Source: Web novel. Com. Updated on Omicron New. Guan sat on the eaves, watching the rising sun, his gaze reaching far into the distance. He saw the battle court, searching for the celestial spirit great world. Because the celestial spirit immortal venerable had reshaped the Tao rules, the new celestial spirit great world was temporarily separated from the path of the great Tao, making it hard for the battle court to directly find the celestial spirit great world. Nevertheless, through causality calculations, the battle court was getting increasingly closer to the celestial spirit great world. Immortal Emperor. Guan pondered this name. In the memory of the silent destruction god emperor, the lord of the war court was the immortal emperor. The Tao practice of this immortal emperor was unfathomably profound, and it was uncertain whether he would come this time. He had already sensed the auras of more than a dozen innate golden immortals within the approaching war court's forces, with more battle court powerhouses arriving continuously. Judging by the situation, they were determined to slaughter all the descendants of the Long clan. She turned her head to look at Bai Shang and licked his face with her tongue. "Stop it. I'll buy you something to eat after I'm done watching," Bai Shang said casually, his gaze fixed on the stage, filled with curiosity. Su Jin became anxious. She bit Bai Shang's neck, causing him pain that made him cover his neck with his hand. Without waiting for him to speak, she jumped to the ground and ran outside. There were too many people around, and Bai Shang, worried she might come to harm, could only follow her. After squeezing through the crowd, Bai Shang saw Su Jin squatting under a tree not far away, and he hurried over. "You!" Just as Bai Shang was about to scold Su Jin, she suddenly transformed, turning into a woman in a white dress with a bewitching face. This shocked Bai Shang so much that he instinctively stepped back. Smack! Su Jin grabbed Bai Shang's wrist and pulled him in front of her. "Listen, I'm only going to say this once, don't scream and shout, a demon is about to descend, and everyone in the city will be devoured by it. I'm no match for it, I can only protect you. You need to come with me now." Su Jin stared at Bai Shang and spoke solemnly, then pulling him, started walking towards the city gate. "Wait a minute." Bai Shang came back to his senses and hurriedly said, trying hard to pull his hand away, but he could not break free from Su Jin's grip. Su Jin turned to look at him, her brow deeply furrowed. Bai Shang quickly said, "Even if you can't save the entire city's population, at least bring Brother Gu with us." Su Jin snorted. "Why should I bring him? After all, we've been traveling together, we're already like brothers. How could we abandon him?" Bai Shang said in a pleading tone. He didn't care that he was shocked by Su Jin being a demon, he believed Su Jin wouldn't harm him. If she would, he would have been eaten already on their journey, so why wait until today? "Fine," Su Jin said impatiently and then took Bai Shang to their residence. Boom! The sound of thunder rumbled, but the people inside the imperial city were still unaware of the danger. Within those thunderclouds, a terrifying figure was stirring, and a pair of blood-red eyes loomed over the human world. Suddenly, countless demon birds burst out of the sea of clouds, sweeping toward the imperial city, their flapping sounds merging together, instantly drowning out the city's hubbub and disturbing the citizens. In the woods, an Xian was sitting on a stone by the brook, fiddling with the Six Paths mirror in her hand. Footsteps approached, and the sect hierarch of Chenkuan sect, Xianxia, arrived. His hair was white, but his face still looked young. He was wearing a wide, exquisite robe, and his presence as the head of a sect was hard to conceal. He came behind an Xian, bowed and said, "Predecessor, the Tao court sent people over, claiming that a great calamity is about to come to the world, and all sects must join forces to repel the enemy." Chapter 573, Battle Court Mythology. Confronting destiny in the early morning, the sunlight cut through the smoke-filled ruins of the imperial city, where corpses and broken walls stained with bloodstains could be seen everywhere. Sar the Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Bai Shang, covered in dust and ash, stood atop the debris, staring at the horrific scenes in all directions, his pupils trembling, unable to accept what was before him. The city he considered the most prosperous had turned into ruins overnight, and the sight of the half-remaining mask of the sword-wielding Taoist head seen earlier touched him even more deeply. How could this happen? Bai Shang muttered to himself, his voice trembling. He felt as though he was in a nightmare from which he could not awaken. He looked up into the distance, then immediately rushed down, beginning his search for Guan, combing through bodies along the way, fighting back fear and disgust. As the sun continued to rise, reaching high noon, he still hadn't found Guan, his hands now covered in fresh blood. Exhausted, he collapsed onto the street, lacking even the strength to lift his head. After a morning of searching, his heart knew no fear, only numbness. A figure appeared before him. He saw the person's shoes but couldn't bring himself to speak. Su Jin looked down at Bai Shang and sighed. "Didn't you say you'd rather die in the jaws of demons and ghosts than live a dull life? Last night, you witnessed a great demon that most mortals will never see in their entire lives. Shouldn't you feel fortunate?" Bai Shang hung his head and asked weakly, "Are you such a demon as well?" Source, web novel. Com. Updated on N0 New. Omicron, I do not delight in killing as they do, but I have killed people, killed demons, Su Jin responded, her answer plunging Bai Shang into silence. Su Jin continued, "Since you've witnessed supernatural powers, why not cultivate immortality with me in the future? Help me find Brother Gu." Bai Shang struggled to speak, and after uttering those 5 words, he completely lost his strength and fainted, toppling forward, but fortunately, Su Jin caught him in time. Su Jin held Bai Shang in her arms, a smile appearing on her face. She had fantasized about this moment for 10,000 years and had finally achieved it. "Don't worry, in this life I will surely protect you, just as you desperately protected me 10,000 years ago." Su Jin murmured softly to herself, lifting Bai Shang up and then soaring into the sky. Her divine sense enveloped the entire city before continuing outward. Strange, where on earth did he go? Could a demon have devoured him? The sound of the blade sliding from its sheath startled Xianxia. She turned her head towards Guan, watched him handling the sword, and was about to ask what he was doing when suddenly her expression changed, and she looked up sharply. Not just her, everyone in the dojo was alarmed and looked up. Above them, the azure celestial vault began to pepper with black dots, which quickly expanded like black holes, riddling the vault with 1,000 gaping wounds. "What is that?" Xianxia furrowed her brow and asked. Guan did not look up. He gently swung the Xian Hong sword, replying, "It's a transcendent force from beyond the Great Thousand World, known as the Battle Court." The Battle Court? Xianxia had never heard of this name before. She asked in surprise, "Why do all these major sects like to name themselves Court, Holy Court, Tao Court, Battle Court? Your book Celestial Court can't possibly be real, can it?" She had always suspected the investiture of the gods and journey to the west to be true, and now, thinking about it, it seemed very possible. After all, Guan's Tao practice was beyond her imagination. "It cannot be said, Guan said with a meaningful smile. He was thinking about what sword technique to use to sweep away the battle court. At that moment, he felt something and turned his head towards the distance, a flicker of unusual light in his eyes. He was looking in the direction of the supreme sect. At the same time, on the remote Tai Tsong continent, Candle Star and Yi Tsong appeared beneath Long Qing's attic, while the soul of the heaven-supporting ancestor emerged from within Long Qing's body. He gazed up at the celestial vault, his brow deeply furrowed. "The battle court is truly fearsome," murmured the heaven-supporting ancestor to himself. Candle Star, too, looked up at the celestial vault, his face showing disbelief. The heaven-supporting ancestor turned to him and asked, "Aren't you also from the battle court? I heard you wanted the supreme sect to take the battle court's place?" Yi Tsong looked at Candlestar as well, detecting the sarcasm in the heaven-supporting ancestor's voice. Taking a deep breath, Candlestar said, "I didn't expect the battle court to have such depths. It seems that the existence has finished its seclusion, and has called back those great powers who have been gone for so long. It's odd, he clearly despises the Long clan, and it was just those war gods targeting them," the heaven-supporting ancestor speculated. "After all, even the celestial spirit god has fallen, and yet the battle court still dares to come. It must have some confidence." Candlestar couldn't answer. His heart was in turmoil. The oppressive force of the battle court's arrival made him tremble with fear. He dared not imagine the sight of facing those war gods, especially that existence. That existence was the myth and legend of the battle court. Even though he had reached the profound Yuan-free immortal realm, he had never seen that existence. Clang! The door of the attic flew open, and Long Qing walked out, descending the stairs at a steady pace, his expression calm. A figure abruptly appeared at the base of the stairs. It was Long Qing's son, Long Teng. "Father, what is the origin of the anomaly in the sky? Why do I feel my qi blood surging uncontrollably? I even feel..." Long Teng asked with a furrowed brow. Long Qing reached the landing and looked down at him. "Even feeling hostility, murderous intentions?" Long Teng's eyes widened in shock as he pressed. "Father, do you have the same feeling?" Long Qing continued down the stairs, his gaze shifting towards the celestial vault. "Some things are too late to tell you, and there is no need for you to know. Just watch." "Just watch? Father, what are you going to do?" Long Teng's eyebrows knitted again, an intense unease building within him. Long Qing stepped in front of him, giving the unnerving feeling that he could disappear at any moment, which instinctively made Long Ting reach out, attempting to grasp Long Qing's robe. Candlestar, Yi Tsong, and the heaven-supporting ancestor, all aware of the Long clan's destiny, kept silent, their eyes fixed on Long Qing. Yi Tsong clenched his fists tightly, filled with reluctance. He had not expected the battle court to come so swiftly. 500 years was a long time for mortals, but for him, it was insufficient for his cultivation level to break through, far from enough to aid his master. Just feeling the vast oppressive force enveloping heaven and earth told Yi Tsong that he could not meddle in this karmic destiny. But how would his master face it? Yi Tsong knew that his own cultivation level was not much higher than his master's, but his master's composure filled him with anticipation. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know, report, so we can fix it as soon as possible." You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.